Greetings. My name is Luis Molina, and I'm the host of the Life Puro podcast. Today, I talked to Hector Borja, who is a brewer at Second Line Brewing in New Orleans, Louisiana. If you like today's content or any previous episode, please visit us at shop.habanaport.com and find the free discount for free shipping in today's episode description. All right, that's good. All right, sir. So we're live. Well, not really live. Yeah. So I like to offer our guests a cigar. So if you want to cut in lights, feel free to do so. I'm going to. So if you don't smoke a lot, I don't know how much cigar smoking you've done.
So that's an interesting story. So when I was living in New York, I'm from New York. There was this cigar shop in the Bronx called Rosario's Cigar. And so like I was going there like every Friday because I was like really enamored with these cigars that were like soaked in cognac or rum, and I never knew how they did that. So like maybe you can like educate me on that, but it was fire. It was like really good and like it was addicting. And then at some point, like it just got too expensive.
Yeah. What part of New York was that from?
So that was in the Bronx. So out of like the 5 boroughs.
Okay.
Yeah. So like North Bronx.
Okay.
So they had like a hole puncher. So I don't know how like the different types of like cutters, like what are the benefits of that? Is it like versus like, I guess this is like what are the names for them?
So that would be like a straight double blade cutter. I like those because they allow for like the largest cut in the opening.
Yeah.
Some people don't like the punches because it's just too small of a cut. But the benefit is that it's a cleaner cut.
Yeah.
It keeps the wrapper intact. I mean the cap intact.
Yeah.
Which the cap is basically like the. So I'm trying to light with the match. So basically it's like, think of it as like a circular blade.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you punch it.
Yeah.
Or twist. And it cuts a nice circular incision in the cap. But the trade-off is if the diameter of the blade is not big enough, it's just a smaller opening. So if a cigar is maybe like bunched a little too tight, that little small opening will definitely constrict that flow even more.
Okay.
And then there's a V cutter, which I don't know if you've seen those.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
Yeah, those are it's like a blade that looks like a V.
Yeah.
Kind of long. And so you open one side up usually, insert the cigar in like the little opening, and then you slide it back close it, and it slices. If you look at it from the side, like this V notch,
Gotcha.
Hence the V cutter name. So, but really, it's all personal preference. It's whatever you're in the mood for.
Yeah, I always had a habit of like trying to make the incision with the hole puncher, and I would always smash the butt of the cigar.
So a little trick that I like to do when using a punch cut is as you insert the punch cutter.
And you cut like right here at the cap? Like
so basically cut north of that.
Okay,
of that cap line.
Leave some cap.
Yep.
Gotcha. So right here.
And don't be afraid if you make a mess or anything. We clean it up in here.
Excuse me.
But the trick with the punch cutter I found is as you insert that punch, I use a twisting motion like imagine I'm holding a punch cutter.
Yeah.
I should have a punch cutter here, actually. I will, as I insert it, I use that twisting motion and then use a twisting motion as I extract it. That way, if you just insert it, and if that blade isn't sharp enough, it'll kind of fall in.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you kind of push more of the tobacco in.
Yeah. You're kind of like core drilling it.
Gotcha. That's a good way to describe it. Yeah. Just like a core driller. Yeah.
Gotcha. So, can I borrow the...
Oh, yeah. So, we got matches or the torch.
Awesome.
Whatever you prefer. I usually go with matches, but I guess the AC in here was kind of windy. But you'd try as you want.
Yeah, because I feel like I always had a hard time with the torch because I feel like I was always burning. I was burning the tobacco too much. So, I think see, I'm a brute.
Oh, no, don't worry. That is... So with the torch lighter, it's a little windy with the AC in here. with the torch lighter, that is a concern where
Let's try this.
if when you light it, when you're going to strike that torch, keep the lighter a little bit farther back from the cigar. The I guess the negative with a torch is if you put that light too close, that extreme heat from that torch will char that cigar. And so like the first few puffs is going to be kind of like a charred, burnt taste. Now that'll dissipate after like an inch, but that's almost like an inch wasted, right?
Yeah.
So what I like to do is pull it back and just kind of roast it.
And you don't like puff at it as you're burning it. You just let it. You just go at it.
So some people have a ritual where they first kind of toast it before putting a draw.
Yeah.
So they'll kind of get that little slight good char, and then they will start drawing it in.
Got you.
All right. So then some people kind of finish it off, touch it up, and as they're puffing, but you're not inhaling. You're never inhaling. Yeah. Just so you know, because I've had some beginners or even like people who don't smoke cigars, they assume that it's about inhaling, and it's not. You know, the whole point of smoking a cigar is just to taste that smoke without inhaling and just blowing it out.
Got you.
So yeah, and then you want to make sure that the entire surface area is lit. So if there's even any little portion that's untouched, you still want to kind of roast it.
Okay.
And
so the gray is the unroasted part, or
like any that exposed tobacco. Yeah, you'll see it. And then sometimes for good measure, I'll inspect it visually. If there is any part that's maybe not lit, you can even just blow on it to spread and fan that flame naturally, and it's a lower temperature, and it'll start to spread out.
But you can always tutorial here.
Yeah, and you can always still touch it up if you need to. It's never an issue. It's not a problem. Yep. And that is like an issue I find with a lot of beginners who I guess just weren't properly educated, that they'll leave portions of the cigar, the foot. So we call this portion the foot. So you cut the head. This is known as the head. You know, usually closest to the cigar band.
Yeah.
And this is the foot. So you would cut the head and light the foot. But some people that maybe just start out, they don't fully light that entire surface area of the foot. So then what ends up happening is you can get an uneven burn. Now your best made cigars and best quality tobacco, even if you leave a little portion unlit, over time it will correct and catch fire.
Oh, okay.
So I've had some people that usually want to test that, and they'll purposely leave a little portion unlit to see if that cigar is corrected.
Okay.
Or if that burn's corrected.
I can completely fuck this up, and it'll eventually
right. Yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah. But let me see. Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
Looks good. And then you just puff at your leisure. You hold it as you want. You know, it's again a personal ritual. So like there are some like tips on how to maybe even hold it, or how do you puff it. It's whatever is natural for you, whatever looks good, feels good too. So usually maybe like a puff a minute is good.
Puff a minute.
If you're trying to maybe figure out what a good a puffing rate is, but again, it's up to you. Now, keep in mind the more you puff, it gets hotter. The temperature increases.
And you start to feel that in your throat.
And you can get that what we call a bite, especially like in the pipe tobacco world. They use that term more. Not so much with cigars, which I mean, technically, if you puff really, often and at higher velocity, you'll get that kind of tongue bite.
Got you. Yeah, there were moments where like you just end up coughing, but this is super mild. It's very fragrant.
Yep, it has a nice floral, like we would call floral profile. And look, you're in the alcohol world, so the same descriptors that you would use, you can apply to the cigar world too.
Okay, so you have like vanille. I didn't know floral.
Yep. Yeah, and so this blend in particular, the brand is called Molino de Viento, which, as you know, means windmill. This is made in Honduras by the Aroa family, who's very well-known Cuban family, ended up in Honduras after the revolution. And the blend itself, it's an all Honduran blend. So all the tobacco in it comes from Honduras. It's what we would also call a puro. So in the cigar world, puro means cigar. That's what the Cubans call cigars. But also a puro is any cigar whose blend is composed of 100% tobacco from the same country. So this would be a Honduran Puro.
Oh, okay.
If there's a Dominican Puro or Puro, it's all composed of Dominican tobacco. But this is all Honduran, and what you see on the outside, that leaf, we call the wrapper. Mm-hmm. So the wrapper leaf is what you see on the outside, and that's a shade-grown variety. Yeah. Meaning that they grew this under like a cheesecloth, and after they ferment it, it leaves like this blonde-looking color.
So the wrapper's fermented. Is it tobacco fermented?
Yeah, all of it's tobacco.
Oh, all of it. So so the tobacco, how is that fermented?
So the way that you find it fermenting in the cigar world is they will literally take these leaves, these tobacco leaves that come from the curing process, which is the point after they literally pick the leaf off the plant, they hang the leaves in a barn, and that starts the curing, right? So where the chlorophyll of the leaf basically is extracted, and think of like a falling leaf. You know, it's green. Yeah. It falls on the ground. Over time, it'll
starts to brown.
Yeah, it'll start to yellow, then brown. That same thing with a tobacco leaf. After the curing portion, then they go to the first fermentation, and what they do is they wet the leaves, and then they literally pile them up in big piles, and they call it pilones. Yeah. And so with the water and then the weight of the tobacco, it naturally starts to ferment this leaf.
Okay, so there's sugar in the leaf.
That's right.
Okay, so they're not adding additional sugar to the water. Oh, okay. That's amazing.
I know you and Maria are big into like fermenting.
Yeah. I'm a huge nerd for fermentation. It's always been a huge like part of my life, just because it's something that you at first couldn't control. It just happened naturally, and then we as humans just started picking up on it and getting smarter and just refining it and like just repeating the process, just because you knew it created a product. And that was like one of the earliest forms of like creation for humans, like aside from like the wheel and fire. It was just something that really defined us as a species. So I fell in love with it, and funny enough, I didn't know I fell in love with fermentation, specifically speaking, beer, until I realized, like, as a 19, 20-year-old, like, you're going out and like getting drinks or getting beers from a bodega, and like they think you're 21. So I loved it. The first craft beer I had was Sam Adams Cherry Wheat. And thinking about it now, that beer was pretty medicinal, but so what? It just tasted different. It didn't taste like a Corona or a Heineken did. It tasted like it tasted, I guess you could say, human. Like, you knew someone put something in here, like someone did something different. So after that, I didn't realize that I always drank beer after that. And then fast track, like 14 years, here I am.
Yeah. No, that's cool. And yeah, so I mean, there are parallels between tobacco production, I guess. Yeah. Fermenting, as what, to very analogous to the beer world, right? Where there's a fermentation process that goes on too. And it's interesting you mentioned Sam Adams, because I feel like, and I don't know the beer world as much as I used to. The founder, Jim Koch, I think is his name. So. He was a big beer nerd too, and Sam Adams was, I guess, when it started, was, I guess, a microbrewer at first, and I guess with his success just grew that brand over time. But I know he's a big advocate for like just the craft, the artisanal component of your trade. So that's kind of cool to hear. That's what it sounds like. When you've tried that cherry wheat for the first time, you realize, wait, this is kind of different than like a typical beer that maybe we all start off trying out, right? There's like something more like craft about it, or something special about it.
Yeah, no, it was, because in New York, it was either Sam Adams, you had Blue Moon, which was like almost craft around that time, and then we ended up getting a Beta.
Oh, you did in New York?
We got a Beta.
Oh, cool.
So like I think we had their strawberry blonde. I think they had a mango one. Like I'm not 100% sure about it, but it was crazy nonetheless. Like no one thought that you could do those kind of things with beer, like just put fruit in it. Like, but it's just such a simple concept now thinking about it.
Yeah, because the fruit also imparts sugars, right?
Yeah,
fructose.
You can
ferment
add fruit to ferment it too. Yeah, the Belgians do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was crazy. But you were saying that certain cigars they mix tobaccos, right? So what's the purpose of that? Is that cost efficiency? Is that adding complexity to the cigar?
Both. So it used to be decades ago when a cigar was made, the factory would typically source the tobacco locally, right? Near the factory. So that's why with Cuban cigars, they were always made of Cuban tobacco. That's what they had access to. Honduras, same thing. You know, the early factories would just use tobacco locally because it was just cheaper, you know, save on shipping costs. However, over time, when the market became a little more like more, what's the word? I guess like more discriminatory, like they were craving more complexity. These factories realized and blenders realized, you know, we need to mix the tobacco components instead of just a single origin, right? To get maybe these and achieve some of these flavor profiles that are more complex, what have you. So now, you know, technically when you label cigar by country of origin, like say I'm smoking a Dominican cigar today, or I'm smoking a Honduran cigar, that just means where the cigar was made. It doesn't even mean that it might have any of that country's tobacco. And that happens all the time. So like just because it's a Honduran cigar, it might be made of 100% Nicaraguan origin tobacco.
Okay.
Yeah, but so just keep that in mind when you ask for, let's say you're asking your tobacconist, like, I want a Nicaraguan cigar today. Well, just specify you want a blend composed of Nicaraguan tobacco, because if you ask for Nicaraguan cigar,
it might not even be.
Yeah. And so like there used to be notions of like this country had these profiles, or this country was known to be this strength. Well, that's been thrown out the window now because these factories are importing tobacco literally from all over the world for certain lines or specific lines. And now they're basically, most of them are trying to achieve, number one, like the flavor profile that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And so just like in the wine world or in the beer world, there's so many different flavor profiles. So we even have like natural cigars, you know, not flavored cigars like maybe you started off with in New York. Like we have some cigars that maybe emit or it reminds you of like certain notes like a fruit.
Yeah.
Or a certain wood or a certain nuttiness to it, woody, leathery. Like it just runs the gamut.
Yeah.
So when I really nerd out and describe the profiles of a certain blend of people, I will talk about the strength, number one, right? And the strength is directly correlated to how much nicotine a cigar has. So like the higher nicotine content, the stronger it is. And for some people, they like that, but some people, they don't like that strength.
Yeah.
Then there's the, I also refer to like a sweet scale.
Yeah.
Because some cigars, like wine, there's some cigars that are almost sweet. Then there's some that are dry or unsweetened or just balanced right in the middle.
Yeah.
And then with flavors, I usually might bring up like colors to best describe, because I mean, you know, how do you describe the taste of a cherry, right, to someone else? You can visualize in your head what it tastes like, but you might have to use other words to kind of frame that, you know, that sensory experience. So
yeah.
So
you do get sweetness, you do get like vanilla. Do you get like acidity at all? Like, is that, since you're fermenting, I would assume. Okay.
There's some cigars that maybe the tobacco's been under fermented. So those will emit like kind of an acidic, even like vinegary component. And you can tell, like, you just have to smoke.
I'm like having a it's so delicious.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's some cigars that will have that kind of vigor. It's like, oh, you can tell, like, oh, this is like needs more fermentation. But,
okay.
I mean, but now the industry is just so good because the standards are so high. Like unless you buy like these really cheap cigars, like you're gonna get like a very good finished product.
Who grows the most tobacco in the world?
By country? I don't really know. For the American market. For cigar tobacco, right? Because there's different strains of tobacco.
Sure.
There's tobacco you would only find used in the cigarette world. A lot of that's grown in the U.S.
Okay.
The pipe tobacco world has its own kind of varietals too, and the way they ferment their tobacco is a little different. But for cigar tobacco, well, I know in terms of like the finished product, like the amount of volume of cigars sold, I think it's Nicaragua, and it has been Nicaragua for like the last few years. But it's always between like Nicaragua and Dominican Republic. Mm-hmm. And then Honduras is third. We don't even talk about Cuba because we don't have access to that product, legally in this country. Although if you travel abroad, you can find them. But plus, they don't really release data, so you never know what the Cubans are doing really anyway. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of hard to answer that just because most of these entities are privately owned. There's very rarely any publicly held cigar entities. One I can think of offhand is STG. That stands for Scandinavian Tobacco Group. They're based, I think they're listed on the Danish Stock Exchange. You might get some information about that.
So you can invest in cigars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know that.
You had to invest in that stock exchange. So talk to your broker about that. I don't know. But I guess if I had to guess, like just growing tobacco for the cigar industry, I'm going to ask people about that, but I would probably guess maybe Dominican Republic.
Okay.
It's close. They grow a lot of tobacco, them and Nicaragua. So it's kind of hard, but like, boy, you have Mexico that grows a lot of sought after tobacco now. Honduras, like I mentioned, even Costa Rica, Panama, Brazil, Colombia. There's even some Peruvian tobacco, Ecuador, U.S., of course. The Philippines used to grow a lot of cigar tobacco. Not so much anymore. The Canary Islands. Now Spain has some. Italy even has some, but that's more for like what they call the dry cured cigars. So you ever seen like those spaghetti westerns, the old Clint Eastwood movies? Those were called cheroots. That's a specific kind of cigar, and they used tobacco either grown in like, no one really knows which brand he was smoking in those movies. Some people say Kentucky cheroots. That's composed of Kentucky tobacco, and I think maybe it's 100% Kentucky, but a lot of those dry cured cigars will have tobacco from Kentucky, Tennessee, and even Italy. Because Italy has their own cheroot. The brand's called Toscano.
So there's a difference between dry cured and regular cured?
Yeah, air cured.
Air cured.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's fire cured, dry cured, air cured, and I think there's another one called flue cured. But I don't even know like exactly 100% of the process that differentiates each one. But like for the cigar trade, it's usually air cured tobacco. I guess just hanging in the barn.
Yeah.
And then they just control the moisture by opening up the barn doors, and open and closed.
Old school as fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of that, it kind of reminds me of coffee in a way, because with coffee, specifically in Brazil, when they ferment the beans, they leave them in the cherry, the fruit that the seed is from. And so they'll leave it out in the sun. It'll start its fermentation, and then they have to like watch it to make sure that it doesn't rot. And then once fermentation is done, and then the fruit is all dried up, they'll just pop that thing out, and then it's ready to process.
Oh, okay.
So it gives the coffee like this nice acidity, like a depth of flavor. Also like notes of fruitiness. So it's awesome. I don't know if Maria told you, but we've been roasting our own coffee as well.
No.
Yeah.
What? Cool.
Yeah. So we went to this coffee shop, this roastery shop called Current Crop in New Orleans, and so like you can do a course on like a beginner's course, and they'll teach you how to roast coffie, and it was just super awesome. We ended up doing 3 different varietals. It was a Costa Rican, a Dominican, and I think it was 2 Dominicans and a Costa Rican. And so we did like a light roast, a medium roast, and then we went for like the I think it was a French roast. And I ended up going further and just burnt the beans and got into like an Italian roast. But it was like super educational. It made us buy a little small roaster, and we were able to like just start doing that instead of like spending like $16 for a pound of coffee. Now we can pay like $8 for a pound, and then like
you're roasting yourself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's super dope.
Where do you buy the raw bean?
So you can either,
I guess there are websites you can buy.
So there are websites. So I think there's one called Maria's Coffee. Funny enough. And then Current Crop has like a huge selection there. They have a library of coffee. I think. If I can give you a ballpark, it would probably be like 100 to 200 different like varietals of coffee from like Ethiopian, Indian, Vietnamese. It was dope.
That's cool.
Yeah. So
what's your favorite style of coffee? Like in terms of roast, and then all right, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
What's your favorite roast? And then do you have a favorite way to extract the coffee? Like in, i.e. espresso versus drip versus French press.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, what's your favorite roast, and then what's your favorite extraction?
So I keep paying homage to Brazil. Okay. Everybody's gonna love it. So I like Brazil's process. Sometimes what they'll do, aside from like doing a natural process, they'll do a wet process. So what they'll do is they'll remove the fruit off of it. So they'll like, I guess they can just dehusk it, I guess you can call it.
Okay.
And then once you take that coffee bean out, there's like a film on it, a mucilage is what they call it. And then that has a pectin on it. So like there's a little bit of sugar to it. And they'll put that in like a tank or a vat and let it ferment with no oxygen in there. And sometimes they'll clean off some of that skin, that mucilage. So the more mucilage you have, the higher the fermentation, the more acidic the coffee can be, the more fruitier, the more fruity it can be. So it gives you like, I think what do they call it, like a honey process, like a red honey process, a black honey process, and that just means like how much mucilage they left on the seed. Because the more mucilage you have on it, the darker the seed gets because of fermentation. Oh, so
yeah, because there's a fermenting process. That occurs
exactly. And then I prefer like a medium roast mostly, because like I do like a bit of bitterness and like a little bit of like that earthiness to my coffee. I think sometimes the light roasts tend to be a little too acidic.
Yeah.
But like I can get the best of both worlds. I can get a little bit of fruity notes, I get a little bit of acidity, and we'll use like a Chemex or like a, what do they call that? A pour over.
Yeah.
So I used to have an AeroPress, like those little plastic ones. It was like a single cheap little French press, I guess you can call it. So that was what I used to do, and that was great. You can do like an espresso shot with that.
Oh, cool.
Or you can do Americano. But yeah.
Yeah, I've heard of those AeroPresses. I've just never used it. I've heard of it.
It's pretty cheap. It's like $20.
Okay.
It'll change your life. It does a really good extraction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love coffee. I don't know a lot about it, but I just know I love coffee. And for me, that's the best pairing in terms of any liquid, alcohol or non-alcohol.
Really?
I'll go to coffee, and it could be drip. It could be, my favorite is espresso, cappuccino, what have you. I love pairing coffee, coffee drink with a cigar.
So is like the dipping procedure for cigars, is that a real thing?
Yeah, some people do that. A lot of old Cubans do that.
Yeah.
So like Cuban coffee, you probably are familiar with Cuban coffee, right?
Yeah.
It's basically an espresso that has a lot. What's that?
Rocket fuel.
Yeah, that has a lot of sugar in it.
Yeah.
So that's basically all a Cuban coffee is. And what a lot of, especially like old timers will do, is they'll take the cigar and dip it, and maybe kind of coat the cap, the head with some of that espresso, the crema, and they'll maybe when they draw in the air, it passes through like a filter through that crema.
Yeah.
And then they get that. But I mean, a lot of this maybe just ritualistic too. They just kind of saw their fathers doing that, and so they'll do that. But like, you don't have to. The purists would probably look down on that. But I tell people, just do what you like,
Yeah.
But it will change the cigar too. So whether it's good or bad. But no, I love coffee. I love Italian roasts.
Okay.
So I know Maria, and for people who don't remember, Maria was on a previous episode. You're married to Maria, correct?
Yeah.
And how long have you guys been married?
We've been married for, I would want to say officially like 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
We kind of U-hauled it to Baton Rouge. So I don't know if she told you, but we both lived in New York. We met in the beer industry. She worked for this brewery called Wild East, and I worked for this brewery called Finback, which was like a high boy brewery. We were known for like our hazy IPAs and stuff. So I was just like on a day off doing my liquor run. So this was around the same time I was like experimenting with rum. So I was like buying different rums, and I ended up buying like a Clarin, which was like a Haitian rum, and like a Cachaça, which was like a Brazilian Brazilian agricole. You can say there's a huge argument that we end up having because I cannot call Cachaça a rum. It's kind of like you can't call a whiskey a bourbon.
Yeah, isn't it? Correct me if I'm wrong. Cachaça is basically it's distilled from the cane juice, right?
Yes.
Whereas rum is derived from the molasses.
Sure. Yes.
Is that part of it?
Yes. And now you have agricole rum, which is from the French Caribbean, which is the same process. They ferment. They make the fermentation from cane juice. Oh. So that's where like the line starts to get a little bit blurry because like it is. They still call it a rum, but it's an agricole rum.
I see.
So, but the only difference is Cachaça is known for its yeast. So the yeast is indigenous to Brazil. So that's what makes it a cut above the rest.
I see. Yeah, it gives its own distinct
like
profile.
You can't get that anywhere else.
I could try to recreate it here, but it's going to taste different.
Yeah, it's like champagne. Like it can only be done in the region of Champagne.
Okay.
So yeah,
very similar.
So yeah, we ended up meeting at her job, and I just had like a couple of these bottles in my book bag, and so I sat at the bar. We started chit chatting, and this was around COVID, so like we all had masks on, so like I couldn't really see her face, but she had an accent. I was like, "Where are you from?" Like, "You're from South America," and she has this rap for sounding like a French Canadian. Everyone thinks she's French Canadian, but it was like, no, like you're obviously a South American. And then she was like, "Oh yeah, I'm Brazilian." I'm like, cool. I have Cachaça in my book bag, and like that's what sparked it off for us.
Wow! So the alcohol was the icebreaker.
Yep,
that's cool.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Yeah, because she had told me during her visit here that I guess you two were in a trip to Oaxaca recently. And you two are just fans of just anything fermented.
Yeah.
So I found that really intriguing and interesting.
Yeah, that was she got me a birthday gift to go to Oaxaca, and we were interested in like going to see like where mezcal was made. So we started off in Mexico City. We went to this Museum of Architecture where we saw like brutalist architecture. Which is like gorgeous.
That's the name of the style?
That's the name of the style. Like it's like it's very simplistic, but like rigid. I think the design was making structures cheaply, so they use a lot of concrete. But it's all over Mexico City. You'll see those buildings everywhere. You also see some of those buildings in Brazil as well. So we did that, and then we went to Oaxaca. We saw the temples in Matatlan. No, was it Matatlan? No. We went to the Zapotec temples, which were the earlier civilizations, earlier than the Aztecs. And then we went to, which a lot of people argue about. And then we went to Matatlan, which was like the mountainside. Where we saw where the maguey is, which is like the agave plants. And it was a completely different world. Finding out that like they have over like 200 varieties of agave plants, what they call magueys. And they can blend them just like they can with cigars for different fermentations to get like this crazy complexity of like flavor and aroma. And it was an experience and a little bit of jealousy because I would love to do that. I would love to like just like grow a plant from outside and just like crush that, burn it, and then just spark a fermentation. But yeah.
But that takes a lot of land and a lot of time.
It takes a lot of land, a lot of time.
And plus the weather isn't.
Yeah. And the thing
like
is.
A good frost here would just kill that, huh?
Yeah. And the thing is, I don't know. I don't know much about that. Thing is, some of those agave plants aren't ready to pull out for like 20 years, 15, 20 years.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So it's like it's a huge waiting game for those things. And then some people say that bourbon you have to wait like minimum of 2 years. Sometimes you have to wait like 10 years for one, but just for the plant itself, it's just 15, 20.
Yeah, I don't know if Maria told you. I just came from a trip don't worry about that. From Tequila, Mexico. Oh, yeah, it happens here. Hey, this is a cigar shop.
Yeah.
I went to Tequila and went to some tequila distilleries, and I'm sure the parallels are there. I guess the difference being that tequila is a mezcal, but what makes it tequila is that it can only use the blue agave plant.
Yes.
And when I was on a tour, we went to the distillery called Fortaleza. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that brand.
Yeah.
And on the grounds there, they had a little section where they had, of course, they had all their blue agave crops, but they also had a little section where they had all these different species of other agave. And I guess Oaxaca would call it maguey. They call it maguey. Yeah. And I was just like blown away. Like I didn't know that there was even that many hybrids, I guess, or types of that plant. It's pretty cool.
And you're in the world of fermentation as well. Tobacco. Your dad was a brewer, I hear.
Yeah. He worked at a Beta brewery.
Yeah, for some time. I saw a little bit about the podcast.
Oh yeah.
That must have been a different time. Like when did he work there?
Oh, I don't even remember what years that was. I want to say early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Yeah, maybe. Wow. I think around 2000 or 2003. I had to ask.
That's a different world. That was a different world for beer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they still had right before the explosion of microbreweries. Although it was coming up.
Yeah.
And as you probably know, Abita was probably one of the first in this state in Louisiana to kind of usher in that movement.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean they're huge, and yeah, I didn't realize they're up in New York now. They wouldn't even probably be considered. I mean, I guess they'd be a macro brewery. I don't know what their barrel output
by
is.
Now they have to be macro. They're all over the country. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I can't imagine working for a brewery of that size.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, did you hear any stories? Like there had to have been some crazy stories about.
I remember he said he hated doing the strawberry one. Mm. Just because of the process, it was just a lot of heavy lifting. Yeah. With the puree. That's the only reason why I hated it.
Like 44-pound bags, or sometimes you get like a 53-gallon drum of like fruit puree.
Yeah. And I remember the perks. He would every week he was given like I think 4 6-packs. So that was kind of cool. I mean, at one point, like he just collected so much he couldn't keep up with just drinking. He just started accumulating some of the beer.
And he did cheese too, right? Before that or after?
Before that. Yep. So he had he acquired this company out of Mount Hermon, Louisiana, which is in I think Washington Parish. Mm-hmm. From these 3 guys that started. It was called Chicory Farm.
Yeah,
was the name of the brand, and so he learned how to make cheeses like in a European style. Recreating like a cave. Mm-hmm. To age some of these cheeses, and he did some fresh cheeses like mozzarella, but he loved like that European style, I guess you can call it. But the problem was he's just undercapitalized. Like he had distribution in like some high end restaurants. Mm-hmm. I know that he used to sell to Emeril Lagasse. He would sell some.
I haven't heard that name in years.
Yeah, yeah, and some like other high end restaurants in San Francisco, New York. But then, he had to close it down to help pay for me and my brother's college.
Yeah.
So that was kind of sad because I love that. I mean, I actually used to remember helping him make some of the mozzarella the night before because we would go to the Crescent City Farmers Market back then. Yeah. And have a little stand and sell direct to consumer. But I just hated doing the mozzarella because you had to put your hands in this hot vat of water to make the cheese. Are you familiar with cheese making?
I've been seeing like videos here and there because I've been interested in doing it. Mm-hmm. So you'll have like your whole milk or is like a heavy milk. I don't know.
Yeah, he would buy the raw milk, cow milk primarily. He was trying to do some goat milk cheese. We even had some goats too that we were trying to raise. It was primarily cow. It was the raw. And so I forget the whole process. I was a lot younger. He would put the Rennet, I think it's pronounced.
Yeah.
It's that, I guess, that component that starts separating the whey from the
starts coagulating everything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I've seen videos where people have been using like lemon juice to do that. So I'm wondering if like the Rennet or the Rennet is an acid.
Yeah, I had to talk to him. I'd like to, if you ever, since you're, I guess, in New Orleans a lot, swing by the store one day.
You have a store down there too?
Mm-hmm, yeah, in Metairie.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Metairie?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, if you want to talk to him about the production, he can give you, I'm sure he can give you some pointers.
Gotcha.
But yeah, he did all sorts of styles, and he would name each cheese after a parish. So like he had the Washington Parish cheese, and I forget what style that was. He had one, I remember this, the Catahoula, and like the cheese nerds love that one. It was one of those stinky cheeses.
Yeah.
Like soft, I guess, run. And I apologize to any of the cheese nerds that are probably crucifying me right now.
Fact checkers get it.
Yeah, exactly. But it was like one of those stinky cheeses that it was a funky rind, but you obviously didn't eat that. You would cut it, and it like the inside would be like a very soft kind of, like you could spread
creamy,
it almost.
Yeah.
Okay. It's like the nerds love that one. But that's like a very small population. They just like the typical kind of like cheddar, hard, semi, I guess like hard cheese.
Yeah.
But yeah, I miss that. Like I always like try to like convince them, like, man, one of these years you gotta maybe try to get back into that, like do like a micro production.
Yeah, and that's the greatest thing about like fermentation or like cheese making is that connection you have with family. Like you have a vivid memory of making cheese with your father. And for me, I have a memory of making pan de queso or almojábanas with my grandmother. And those things are like instilled in us. Like we will never forget those moments of like building that connection, which is like just creating culture within our family.
Yeah.
And
food traditions, right?
Yeah.
What is that, by the way?
What, pan de queso?
Yeah.
Pan de queso is a baked good that is either made with like manioc flour or juca flour or cassava. Manioc, juca, cassava, all of them are the same. Like made out of either that kind of flour. Some people do corn, and then they mix that with I'm assuming there's some egg in there, some cheese, obviously, because it's made out of cheese. The bread, pan de queso.
Yeah.
And then you just bake it. Now you have like this beautiful golden brown, crispy on the outside, super cheesy and gooey on the inside, baked good. Maria and I make it a lot, so like we'll stop by and bring you some.
Oh wow!
Yeah, everyone the guys from Oxbow, we'll hang out with them. They'll have like a little party. And we'll just bring some of that to them.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, we'll add you to the list.
Awesome. Yeah. No, and that's what first, I guess. How I met you, how I met Maria was all through Cole. So I've noticed like, wow, there seems to be a community of brewers and distillers that like know one another.
That's we're a tight knit. I met Cole. I worked with Cole. I currently do work with Cole still on the weekends. This was that Oxbow, formerly known as 3-Roll, was my first distillation gig. I always wanted to learn how to ferment and distill rum, and they were the ones that gave me that opportunity. So when I moved down here for them, I met him, and we started creating like our own system and procedure, along with Revel, who was distilling there at the time. He's one of the owners now. So
okay,
yeah,
at Oxbow.
Yes, at Oxbow.
Okay. Yeah, I remember I first went there when it was 3-Roll Estate. And man, I like the branding of Oxbow. That's really clean looking. I haven't been there since the rebranding, but I guess I hope to go there soon.
Oh man, yeah, the passport is it's awesome, dogs. It's crazy because like those tin tackers are gorgeous now. Have you seen them? Yeah. They're in the passport book, right?
So for people who don't know what we're talking about, we're referring to the Capital Area Craft Trail. So it's basically this group. I guess a few years ago, I think it's the third year.
I think it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so what this group did was create this like trail of sorts. You have these participating breweries and distillers in the Baton Rouge region. And so you can get this passport. They just started, I think last Friday. That would have been July 26th. So what you do is you visit all these distilleries and brewers, and you buy, I think, like a minimum. There's like a minimum purchase, like maybe 8 ounce or 10 ounce pour, and then they'll stamp the passport. And when you visit all of them, you can get this what they call a tin tacker. It's like this like pretty nice size, like metal, like tin, like plate, I guess you can hang on the wall. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's really cool. I didn't realize they had been doing this. I think this is the 3rd year. I think the first year had like a magnolia in the middle. And then I think this last year was what?
I don't remember last year.
Yeah, something Louisiana centric.
Yeah. It's always going to be. But yeah, the
it's
artwork,
really cool.
The artwork now is like the best one they've had yet.
So I need 3. I have 3 left.
Who do you have left now?
So I have Oxbow. I need to visit. Then Tin Roof. And so they're right near each other. So I'm going to tackle those. So hopefully I can see Maria and then Cole at Oxbow. And then
Leshen?
Okay, yeah.
The dog.
Okay.
Yeah. Out in Denham Springs. It's a nice little spot. Yeah. What was his name? The owner, Brett, he built that place from the ground up with his dad. He was actively brewing. I don't know. He might be brewing there still now. I think he might have hired someone. But yeah, he makes really good stuff. His red ale's fire. I fuck with it so much. So
get the red ale at Leshen?
Get the red ale at Leshen.
Okay.
Were you able to go to Istrouma?
So what? Okay. So, and look, like I said, I'm not an expert in the beer distilling world, especially locally. Yeah. So this is cool that this was started, I guess, to promote all these businesses and get people out there. Because I never visited Agile, Cypress Coast. I've been to Gila, Grain Creation. So Istrouma apparently is closed right now. I think they're renovating.
Yeah, they're renovating.
So I went first to Les Versailles.
Yeah,
Les
Versailles. Yeah, the
and so they'll just stamp Istrumas for you.
Yeah, Tin Roof does the same thing to hook you guys up. So people don't have to go crazy for it. And people they'll try to get that tin tack. Oh yeah. People will try to knock these out all in one day or one weekend. So
you got to be careful. Have a designated driver. Uber.
Either that or just Uber it, dogs, because it gets dangerous, especially on Nicholson when you have to just drive down that thing.
I know.
Yeah.
So it's cool. Yeah, because they only have, I think, 500 of those tin tackers. So I'm trying to knock it out. Hopefully I can knock it out either tomorrow or Friday. And I hope they still have some tin tackers because those are cool little pieces.
Yeah, I think you should use. There's still a couple. I know Oxbow still has a couple.
Okay.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to finish this ASAP. So, but yeah, it's cool. Like I said, it got me, and I'm sure that was the whole point, was to get people locally or maybe outside Baton Rouge to visit all these brewers and distillers. Which, I mean, I know I'm from Metairie.
Yeah.
And so I moved, I guess I've been living here since 2012. It's cool to see this growth of these businesses here. So yeah, I'm excited. It's pretty cool though.
I love when small businesses do shit like that.
Yeah.
Just building a community. And it's hard, especially in Louisiana. The beer community is not as tight knit as I would like it to be. Speaking between Tin Roof, Oxbow and Second Line, we're pretty close together, and I would just love to see more of that. Maria's friends with the head brewer at Miel. Miel is,
how do you spell that?
Miel? Honey.
Yeah, honey. Yeah. Okay. Where's that at?
So that is, dang, I wish I knew.
Is it New Orleans?
It's in New Orleans.
Okay.
But it's I think that's Tchoupitoulas.
Okay.
If you Google it, you'll know. But it's a beautiful brewery. They make great stuff. And Shauna, the head brewer, she's also the head of the Pink Boots chapter which is an organization for women in beer.
Cool.
So
the Pink Boots.
Pink Boots, yeah. So Maria is part of that as well. She's the head of the education program part of it, and so she just starts educating people on fermentation, beer, and whatnot. And that's great. That's all we've always been about, was just education and learning about food science.
Yeah.
But Speaking of beer, I brought you some beer.
Okay.
And Maria and I made an Amaro.
Oh, cool.
So you like Amaros, right? Like what was
Amaro.
your favorite Amaro?
My favorite brand is Lucano.
Lucano.
Yeah,
Okay.
and specifically the Aniversario one. I think they have another one, but I like the Anniversary. Mm-hmm. But can you explain to people who don't know what we're talking about, what Amaro is? Because I feel like no one really knows what that is unless you're an old Italian.
That, or like if you're in the hospitality industry, like a bartender or something. Oh
yeah,
that's kind of like your nightcap, like your little snack after a shift. But it's an aperitif.
Okay.
And what
is it? An aperitif? It's not a digestif. I've only never had it after.
So it's either an aperitif or a digestif. Yeah, okay. You're correct. I chose the wrong word.
I mean, you could. I guess one could drink it before.
Yeah, I drink it whenever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a digestif. It's a liqueur that they take botanicals and citrus, and they let that sit in the spirit. And then after those botanicals have been extracted, the flavor from those things, they would then sweeten it back with like a sugar. In our case, we use Acadian honey.
Cool.
And then they proof it down to about like anywhere between 30 and 40% alcohol.
Okay.
So depending on the distillery that makes our Amaro, I think Fernet Branca, which is an Italian distillery, I think their thing was like they did like 100 different botanicals or something in that.
Wow.
And they won't share their recipe, of course not.
Mm-hmm.
And then they let that sit for like a couple months or something. So we kind of did the same thing with this one, but the botanicals we used was gentian root, which gives Amaros that bitter flavor that's widely known for. We added licorice root as well. We added spearmint, sage. We used black tea, jasmine tea, and black currants. Ooh. Forgot one that goes back to coffee.
Okay.
There's this thing called cáscara. And cáscara is just a Spanish word for skin. So what the coffee makers did, and they got smart, instead of disposing of the fruit, the cherry peel that they de-pit and they keep the coffee bean, they just dried that out. They just took that and sold it, and it gives off like a plummy kind of acidic flavor. So we added that.
Plum.
Yeah. It's not. It's weird. You would think it was going to be coffee, but it's not. So we added that to it, and then we added the honey, the Acadian honey. We tried to use smoked honey before, and that's kind of interesting. But I think we didn't do that in this case because we didn't know if it was gonna like mesh well with the jasmine tea. Okay. So that'll be for dessert. I have 2 beers for you here.
Hey, I'm ready.
What kind of beers do you like?
Anything.
Yeah. Okay.
I like IPAs, stouts.
Oh, perfect.
I'll even do sours. Like I'm just a voracious appetite when it comes to beers.
So I have a Saison, which is our beer called Saison named Desire. Saison is you can call it French Belgian style that is fermented at warmer temperatures because it's technically a farmhouse. So it has this very funky aroma to it, and we added blood orange to it. Ooh. So it's like between that sweet and funky kind of vibe, and then everyone loves an IPA, so we have our version of a West Coast IPA with Citra, Amarillo, and Centennial hops. So for those who don't know, Citra, given the name citrus, it has this very sweet, lemon pithy kind of flavor. Amarillo, which is a West Coast hop, has more of like a floral, citrus kind of deal, as well as lemon because you have to like blend them together. And then we have Centennial, which goes into like the original aromas of a West Coast, which is like pine notes, woodsy, grapefruit. So that one's really, really nice. It has a nice malt backbone, so it's complex on all sides of that beer.
Okay.
So I think we should start with the Saison, right? And then we'll work our way into the West Coast.
Whatever you recommend.
Cool.
So do you need a pint glass or are we drinking from there? Or what? I have glasses.
Oh, perfect. Let's grab the glass.
All right, hold on. Let's see.
I bought my own Glencairn glasses for the Amaro, so.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, let me see about the glasses. Well,
it doesn't matter. We ain't gotta be bougie in this bitch.
I know.
You're fine.
I love it. All right, so.
Okay, thank you. I don't know how much you want, but you can always help yourself more.
Yeah.
Here you go.
So this is the Saison Name Desire. I love that. That's what I like about the microbrewery business is like the creativity and artwork and branding.
Oh yeah,
it's really funny.
You can see the streetcar.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so like, cheers.
Oh yeah, cheers, salud.
I got a little bag of ice here, so I kept them cold for you.
Yeah, it's nice. Thank you.
But it'll start warming up, and you'll start getting like that funky notes. But there's like a kiss of blood orange, so it's not like just a fruity beer.
I know for people wondering, they hear like that little, like I try to gurgle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, well, just I know people probably like look at me like, dude, you're so pretentious, but there's a science behind that.
Yeah,
like there's a purpose and a reason.
Your palate is activating as you're doing that. But it's so funny you say that because I get made fun of from doing that.
No, it's the best way to perceive flavor.
Yeah.
Right. So you get made fun of it?
Oh, all the time.
Even people in the industry?
Yeah. I think Maria has made fun of. She's just.
Yeah.
So it's just a habit I ended up forming. What was I gonna say? But yeah, I love this beer. It's one of my favorite beers just because like it ferments pretty dry and it's clean.
Yeah, I like that.
But then you would think that it just stops there. No, like you still get that funk. You still get like a nice little bit of bitterness, a little zing of citrus, which is perfect.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to try to get this on the camera for people to look at the branding here. Let's see if I can get.
So you do that for cigars as well? Do you?
Yep. So there's a process. All right. And let me explain. I actually want to find someone. I know that LSU has, I think, this sensory department where they actually give like a course on how to perceive flavors in like for the food sciences. So very similar with cigars. When you draw smoke, so here's like the science of like tasting cigars.
Yours was still lit? Mm-hmm. No, mine is dead.
So look, just watch what I'm doing. I'm going to draw in the smoke, but watch if you really want to perceive more flavor, this is what you do. See what I did there?
Did you just
I draw, we call it retrohaling. Mm-hmm. You draw in the smoke, but you're not inhaling. You're blowing it through the
nostril,
the sinus, the nasal cavity, because biologically, like there's a opening, there's a connection from the mouth all the way back up to the nose. So like think about like when you drink milk and someone makes a joke and it goes out your nose.
Yeah,
that's because it's all connected. Now the reason you want to, we call that retrohaling. It's not inhaling, right, where you're drawing in the smoke into the lungs. You're drawing in the smoke through the mouth and then the olfactory chamber. The reason you do that is because aromas are perceived right up here. Your olfactory glands are right up here in your nasal passage. When that smoke hits that organ more directly, you perceive more flavor. Because remember, the mouth, you only have taste, which is salty, sweet, sour, bitter, and acidic.
Acid, yeah.
Yeah, and there's like umami, which is like savory, but that's all you can perceive. To get those real detailed flavors like leather or nuts or wood, whatever, it has to be like hit that organ more directly.
Yeah.
So that's the same reason, like in wine judging, they'll what they're doing is agitating the air molecules of those aroma compounds, and the better ones will retrohale that air, so they can pick up more flavor. And that's why I kind of like if I really want to nerd out, like I'll do that kind of like you're not like you can swirl. Some people might swirl, but that I just learned that's like doing that action, like you can perceive more flavor.
Okay. You should start getting a little ASMR going with ASMR. You know what ASMR is? So ASMR is like this weird trend where people start eating or like eating food or doing like tapping their cans or glasses through a very like hypersensitive mic, and it's soothing for people. Yeah. So like you want to start doing that with like cigars and
like you hear the cutting, like lighting.
It's such a weird trend, but like for some reason people love that. I don't know if it's still going now, but
I never heard that. ASMR.
ASMR, yeah.
Yeah, because like I'm hearing now, like you lighting your cigar. Yeah, you put it closer to your mic, you can pick it up.
Oh, you can hear it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for the ASMR people.
Yeah, there it is.
Sorry.
So I know, like, but I always feel kind of like when I do like the swirling or like I try to like be discreet because I don't want people to think like, dude, you're so pretentious. You're such an idiot. But dude, there's real like I'm telling people like try that out. Even when eating food, like if you somehow like when you're chewing, like blow that air, like retrohale that air that's over that food and blow it through the nose. I swear you'll pick up like more flavor.
So this is starting to cave in a little bit. Does that even itself out eventually?
Let me see. I guess we're almost calling that what we call like tunneling. It should even out.
Okay.
Like you and I, we're talking a lot. So it's natural. Like it happens with every guest or myself when I'm talking a lot. Like it's just going to go out on you.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of tobacco. It's natural. So if you don't puff on it, it's just going to extinguish. So that's why when people start out smoking, or even just regulars, like you want to be mindful that you're nurturing that fire. If not, it's going to go out. But if you got to relight, you can, but just know that maybe on that relight, it's maybe not going to taste as good as it maybe should have. But I wouldn't throw it away.
No, it still tastes great. The aroma is super nice. It's floral in a way.
Yep. It's a very floral blend, almost creamy too. Yeah. There's some cream, cedar.
So how do you describe cream in this aspect?
Like almost like a vanilla-y kind of cream. When I say, but that's good to specify. Like, what do you mean cream? Because there could be like creme de coco or de menthe or we can even go like that nerdy with like flavor descriptors too. So I guess just like in the beer world or any other food component.
Is there a cigar that's very tropical in flavor? Like, do you get coconut off of like a cigar?
Not offhand that I can think of coconut. But I've had some cigars, like weirdly enough, and these are traditional cigars, right? That they say that aren't flavored. Like I remember the Arturo Fuente Angel Share Opus. To me, on the pre-light, like we call that not retrohale. What do they call that? You basically cut the cigar, and before you light it, you draw in air. Yeah. So you can kind of taste what that tobacco's like before lighting it. Yeah. Like the pre-light draw.
Kind of like the amuse-bouche or something like that. Like a taste of what's to come. Okay.
Yep. There's even a cigar called amuse-bouche.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, from Viaje, yeah. But that pre-light draw had, it's weird to say this, but it almost had like a banana component.
If you get that, let me know.
Is that what they call phenols? Phenols have like a banana compound.
Yeah.
Or they call esters.
You can I would say like
because I've heard that
esters,
term.
Phenol, yeah, Maria. Yeah. So a typical chemical compound found in like rum or like in fermentation, like for wheat beers, German wheat beers, you'll have this aroma or flavor of banana, which is I believe is amyl acetate. And that's just a byproduct of fermentation. Okay. And you can get that in a lot of fermentation. You can get that in sake, you can get that in rum, you can get that in beer. So it's a pretty natural byproduct of fermentation. Yeah. And it has a distinct signature of like flavor profile. Yeah. That's cool. But I mean, I've even had some cigars that have like a dried fruit. There are a lot of dried fruit flavor like profiles. Fruit, it could be like a stone fruit or like a dried cherry, even some apricot. I picked up on some that have like almost it reminds me a little of an apricot. But that's the thing too with like descriptors, and I'm sure it happens in the beer world too. Subjective.
Yeah, it really is. And then like I'll even tell people, look, this has like leathery, like a Camacho leather is different from say like an Aroa leather, and these are just two different cigar brands. But leather's just kind of the best way I can describe it, even though they're different. Yeah. So it's hard. I mean, but then you have like some of these ratings or magazines. Sometimes I'm wondering, like, are you being just too cute?
Yeah. Sometimes it can be perceived as like pretentious. Yeah. But that's the thing about being subjective to those when it comes to like a flavor profile. Those are the things that people can relate to. And even if you do say it, and they're like, oh yeah, I tasted. Did they really? Mm-hmm. Maybe not. But
were they influenced?
Exactly. Yeah. But it still created the sense of enjoyment. Mm-hmm. It still created that experience. So in essence, that's most of the trick is for them to enjoy themselves. So yeah, if they don't, even if they don't taste it, it's just like, yeah, I just taste beer. All right. Was it a good beer?
Yep.
Oh yeah, it tastes good. Cool. So job's done.
That's exactly what I tell our consumers. Like in the end, don't even try to like worry yourself about describing, do you like the cigar or not? That's it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go complicated past that. So
there's a little bit of brown sugar to this. It's kind of interesting.
I can see that. But yeah, this blend for retrohaling, to maybe go back on that, if someone wants to do that at home, don't force it either, because there's some tobaccos or some blends that maybe are too strong or under fermented, where when you try to do that, it'll have like this unpleasant prickly sensation up in the olfactory, in the sinuses there. So just stop. Don't force it. But this blend is made to where like some blends, it's effortless. Like you can do it, you can retrohale and it won't bother you. But yeah, if you want to try, feel free to, but practice with air. Practice with air first. Like you draw in air and just try to push that air through the nose.
So funny enough, we tend to do a sort of retro inhale.
Yeah, retrohale.
Retrohale with spirits and with beer. So I took a course on like tasting, like what was like a sensory, if you will. And they would say like when you take your spirit, you bring it to your mouth, and then when you go to like right before you swallow, you open your mouth slightly, inhale, and then you swallow, and then once you open your mouth again, the aroma comes out through like from your mouth into your nose. I guess I have to demonstrate it once we get to the Amaro part.
I've heard the open, like leaving the mouth open. I think what that does, my theory, I'm sure people can correct me, leaving it open allows like a flow. Like think about if you have like a tube, right? And you close one end of the tube with your thumb or you first you submerge it underwater, close one tube.
And you create a vacuum.
Yeah, and it creates that vacuums, and then when you lift it above water, when you let go of that finger, the water comes out of that tube. I feel like there's that kind of physics going on when you leave the mouth open, and like I guess air can kind of circulate more.
Yeah, I guess it's also like with your palate, it's starting to break down those compounds or those flavor compounds, and then as it breaks down, it starts to like work its way into your sinus, right?
Yeah.
But
this is definitely like nerding out about how to dissect the flavors of whatever product.
No, it's pretty amazing to do that, because like there was this tour I did in Kentucky at Angel's Envy. Have you heard of Angel's Envy? It's a bourbon.
Yeah.
So they had this super fucking cool trick where they
more, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me know.
This is really good.
West Coast. I'm glad. Yeah. So Angel's Envy Bourbon Distillery in Kentucky, they had this bourbon aged in Caribbean rum barrels.
Okay.
And during the tour, they gave us a demonstration. They gave us a glass of that rum barrel, and they gave us this piece of milk chocolate that they made there or something. But they said, put the chocolate in your mouth, take a sip of the bourbon, and just swirl the chocolate and the bourbon together. And I shit you not, once I did that, all I tasted was just oranges. It just had this weird chemical reaction, and like for me, that was amazing. That the gastronomy in that was just like insane, and like it made me. I was pissed at first because I was jealous that I didn't think of that, because it's just ingenious. But I would because of those kinds of experiences, you never forget. Going back to like what we spoke about earlier, I'm never going to forget that moment. And it's, damn, yeah. I see now I'm getting emotional about it. But yeah, it was.
Smells are closely linked to memory.
Yeah,
too.
yeah. And but also I kind of want to like figure out the science behind that. Like what chemicals in the chocolate created that kind of like reaction, right? How come when I don't know if there was funny story. There was this ice cream shop in New York, I think it was in Fishkill, which is like, you can say it's like north of Manhattan.
Okay.
On the other side of the river, of the Hudson River. And there was this ice cream shop that had a lavender ice cream. What they did, which is the craziest shit, they would put Cheetos on the lavender ice cream. And they were like, don't knock it till you try it. And you did, and then you would just taste Fruity Pebbles.
Whoa.
And like, who would have thought of that? To me, that's just like some high-ass dude who was smoking weed and decided to do some stupid shit like that. And it worked. So...
That's funny you mentioned like interesting food pairings or just pairings that create this whole nother experience. I like growing up, I used to love Wendy's, and I always liked dipping the Wendy's French fry in the Frosty. Something about that pairing. And it's so American. No wonder I this guy's fat.
No. That's American culture right there. Hell yeah. Or when people would put their fries in the cheeseburger at McDonald's.
Yeah. Or like Doritos chips in like certain sandwiches.
I mean, Taco Bell like kind of made that happen, right? Like they're the only ones that were like, we're gonna make a taco shell out of Doritos, right? Shit.
I know. I know. Some people might just like scratch their heads at this, but like to me, it's the fun of life, just experimenting with crazy stuff and seeing what comes out.
Absolutely.
You know, just the experiential, right? And that's what, when you want to dissect it, why do we smoke cigars? Well, it's to perceive flavor and just like relish that like human sense.
Yeah.
You know?
Even like, so when I walked in here, like all you can smell is tobacco. Mm-hmm. But as I was sitting here, I had this sense of euphoria just by smelling it. Like there's a sense of relaxation. I don't know if that's
I think there's something
real thing.
I think there's something about pure tobacco, right?
Yeah.
Like, I won't defend like cigarettes because that's, to me, and look, I'm not, if you want to smoke cigarettes, on you, but that's an abomination of tobacco, what tobacco should have been. In fact, our first guest, Greyhawk, friend of mine I've known for over 20 years, he's Native American. The Native Americans were the first people in the human race to use tobacco. And they viewed it as, and still do to this day, as a holy product. But you've always had like these tyrannical groups throughout time that have viewed tobacco as like something evil and demonic. And I get like cigarettes kind of corrupted that and supported that view. But the pure cigar, like there's something mystical. And, you know, with Greyhawk's culture, they believe tobacco itself wards off evil spirits. So I've always like wondered, like, man, is that a reason why like cigar shops, you know, pure tobacco shops, there's always like a good feeling, a good cleanse environment, right? And I kind of believe that. I mean, it could also be the fact that this product, it doesn't make you drunk. You're able to keep your sobriety about you, but like create this meditative like
euphoric
process,
state of mind, right?
So I think it's all connected. If not, like, that's just what, maybe for some people, that's what you just naturally get. So I don't know if there is any mystical, I personally believe it, but I don't know. So it's funny you mentioning that, like it kind of reinforces that, my view of that, my theory of that.
I mean, you were saying how tobacco was viewed in like a demonic light, right?
By some groups.
Yeah. Beer had the same thing. I think it was like in the either the late 1800s or early 1900s. Beer was viewed as like the liquid of the devil, and it had the power to change men and into like these crazy people. And for a while, like it wasn't, you weren't allowed. It was like, I guess pre-prohibition, it was taboo.
Yeah, the intemperance movement of this country,
And so...
yeah, it killed families or ruined families.
Yeah, exactly. And there was like a whole bunch of propaganda for it. But no one understood the science behind it. They didn't know that it was just a malt sugar water that just kicked off fermentation and just ate that sugar and turned it into flavor and alcohol. And yeah, it was just like it was like that time wasn't that long ago, and we still didn't have that kind of science. But yeah, we had mathematics, we had physics earlier than that, and we still didn't understand what beer and fermentation was really about. So it just shows how, I guess, how much we're still learning about this culture. Pun intended.
Yeah, I was gonna say yes. Pun intended. I know. I'm a nerd for puns too.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I mean, and to me, that's a fun. Right, we're still like as a human race in the discovery phase of our universe. There's just so much out there, even with tobacco, cigars, beer, foods. Like it's to me, it's cool, and that's part of the thrill and just enjoyment of being alive. You know?
Yeah.
Just sensory. It's all about sensory experience, right?
Yeah. It's all in the mind.
Yeah.
You ready for round 2?
Yeah, let's do it.
I bet.
So this is the West Coast IPA.
It is the West Coast IPA. Perfect. May I get your glass?
Yes, sir. There you go.
Oh yeah, I forgot I had water.
Yeah, we got water if you want to cleanse the palate. Cleanse the palate, even cleanse the glass. Because I'm sure some of we'll have some critics like saying, "Oh, these guys they're not using clean glasses.
No,
they're not
here
gonna."
We go.
I know. Right.
Where's why can't I just have fun?
Hey, we're having fun. Let the critics critique.
Perfect.
Are you familiar with the? I think there's a homebrewers club in Baton Rouge. I forget the name. Maybe Red Stick something. Or,
no, it's a.
I met a guy from that group last week.
Something Brotherhood, or it's a very, very like out there name. But yeah, they really know their shit. And they try beer everywhere from Tin Roof to Second Line, and they just give their opinions on it. Yeah. And it's pretty cool that like they know a lot. And then there's also a rum guild here in Baton Rouge as well. Yeah. So have you been to Pelican to Mars yet?
No.
So it's like a beer bar /
I know one of the owners, Remy.
Yeah, Remy. Okay.
I still haven't been there.
So one of the owners, I think, belongs to that rum club.
Okay.
And so like they stopped by Oxbow, and like we gave them a whole tour.
Oh, cool.
We spoke about distillation and proofing. For people who don't know what proofing is the dilution process of your spirit. So like if you have a spirit out of distillation that's at 100% alcohol and you need to bring it down to like 50, then you have to add like equal parts, like half and half of water to that spirit.
Okay. So basically the distiller is trying to achieve a certain proof.
Yes.
They might manipulate that or achieve that via like diluting it with water.
Yes.
Okay.
So like if
because I've heard of like cask strength versus like I guess some other terms. And,
so cask, I think cask strength is more so whatever the strength is in the barrel.
Okay. At the time of like pulling it? Okay.
They just bottle that up.
Which usually is strong, like the strongest.
Yeah, it depends on what they started off at.
Okay.
So like if you started off at like 100 proof in your barrel, or like 50% alcohol, or you do 120, which is just 120 proof is just 60% alcohol.
Yeah,
so you just times it by 2.
Okay.
Distillers tend to talk in proof just because it's easier to manipulate those numbers for like processes and like professional use.
Okay. I always wondered why they use that term proof instead of just alcohol.
Yeah, it's easier to do the math for that because when they go to sell spirits like at a production level, like in bulk or something, they talk in proof gallons. So in proof gallons, it's automatically the spirit is spoken to at 100 proof. So if you have a spirit that's 200 proof and it's 10 gallons, then you have 20 proof gallons.
Okay. Yeah.
But that's on like the professional side. We don't really like customers.
Like, consumers don't
doesn't
really
matter
yeah,
for consumers that much. Yeah.
Okay.
But
I bring up that homebrew club because I met one of the two of the members at I think Cypress Coast last weekend, and he was telling me about this homebrew club. I think they meet on the first Thursday of the month at George's place off of I think Highland maybe. But he said like what they'll do is like they'll pick whatever style they're going for that month.
Yeah.
And people bring theirs for everyone to try out and sample. They said that the next one is going to be a West Coast IPA.
Our West Coast IPA?
No, in general, the style.
Okay.
The style.
You had me shitting bricks for a second. I'm like, shit, I got to make sure.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah.
Oh,
so when you said this is a West Coast style IPA, it made me think of, that's the next beer style they're doing at
hopefully
the next
they pick
homebrew
up
club.
mine.
Yeah, but it's homebrews.
Yeah.
It's homebrews.
Oh, so everything is the
homebrewers will bring their own homemade.
Gotcha.
And they're bringing their own, like they made at home, a West Coast style.
Okay.
Yeah,
I understand now.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, anyway, enough talk. Let's get to drinking. Salud. Cheers. Nice.
So I think the cigar is influencing this a little bit because I'm starting to get a little mango note, which I wasn't expecting.
Okay. That is a thing with pairing your drink with a cigar.
Yeah, it changes.
It'll change both. It'll change both products. So I remember I went to some wine bar in New Orleans, maybe like 15 years ago. And I was talking to someone there, like just a big wino. And he was, we were talking about like, oh, what do you like to pair? Like, what cigar do you like to pair with your wine? And he was like, well, I mean, the purists don't ever want to pair anything with a wine. Like, you're trying to judge that wine by itself.
Yeah.
You don't want any alteration. So that really stuck with me. I was like, okay, well, but some people might want to pair, but just know that the cigar isn't going to taste the way it is by itself.
Yeah.
And neither will the drink you're pairing it with. Like, and sometimes they can clash, and sometimes they can be like, there's harmony.
Yeah.
Right between the pairing. So a lot of it's just experimental.
Yeah, winos, they take their craft seriously.
Yeah.
Did you ever see the documentary called Sour Grapes?
No, I've heard of it. I think you're like the second or third person during our podcasting.
Oh, really?
To mention that. Yeah. So I need to check that out.
Okay.
Sour Grapes?
Sour Grapes, yeah.
Okay.
It used to be on Netflix, but I think you can probably get it on YouTube or something.
Okay.
So for those who don't know, there was this guy who had a magnificent palate. Like he could drink a wine, tell you the year, the region, who made it, what the dude was smoking at the time. Like it was crazy. And like he was selling really expensive bottles of wine, like $2,000 bottles. And then throughout that, he was making like millions of dollars. And then turned out he had sold a bottle to one of the Koch brothers. And the guy, I think it was Jim Koch, he found out that the bottle he had was fake.
Oh.
And so people started doing an investigation. They found this guy's apartment, and he was actively blending different bottles of wine from like anywhere he could get, and then add chemical compounds, like bottles of chemical compounds into the wine. So
to achieve, I guess, that profile.
To achieve that profile. And that's the crazy thing. His palate was so good that he could replicate a wine bottle from like a 30-year-old vintage, and no one could tell the difference. And he was making a killing. If he didn't get greedy, he would have just kept going.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, like so at one side of the argument, palates, flavor profiles are subjective, but then at this point in the game where like you can make anything with just whatever you can buy like on Amazon or something, and no one can tell the difference, and you can just make a profit off of it. That's next level shit.
Yeah, it's impressive on one hand, but also sad in that like he had this gift.
Yeah,
he could have used it for good, and like maybe getting hired by someone that like in the industry, like maybe come up with a blend.
Yeah,
like legitimately, right? Mm-hmm. But instead, I guess he
Yeah,
went to the fraudulent
he chose
greedy.
the other road.
Yeah, that's I wonder if he was what they call a super taster. Have you heard that term?
No.
So again, I need to get someone from the old sensory, I think lab or somewhere in LSU Sciences. They've mentioned that term, and I've heard it in our industry too. I think it's like a real scientific classification for an individual who has like hyper like perception with like your sense of smell and taste, and they call them super tasters. But it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Apparently, I was reading something because it's so like hyper tuned where it almost takes the fun out of like perceiving flavors.
Yeah,
it's
you can't eat anything. Everywhere you go, like there's just you have to be annoyed at something.
I guess the analogy would be like if you had this awesome sense of hearing, you could hear someone from like a mile away, but like it's so everybody. Sensitive. Yeah, it's like too jarring.
Yeah,
maybe
you can hear everyone's conversation in the classroom or something.
Yeah, so I just found that intriguing, but I'm wondering if like some of like these more successful or conglomerates in food sciences like hire. I'm sure maybe they hire super tasters. It reminded me of a scene in it was a sequel to Silence of the Lambs. Where they had a scene.
Red Dragon?
Maybe that was it.
Yeah, it was I love that film so much.
I hadn't seen that in like so long, but I remember there's a scene where I guess the detective was in front of this panel of like people in the perfume industry.
Yeah.
And they could like have a heightened sense of smell. And I guess she had like a clue, like some like artifact, and she was asking these people to smell it because they can detect maybe like where the criminal was just by smell. Yeah. And that always intrigued me. Like, are there really people like hired by like the perfume industry or maybe the food sciences where they're super tasters, super smellers?
Yeah,
you know?
there has to be. Have you ever seen what's that ice cream company, Pepperidge Farm?
I think they do pastries maybe.
Yeah, so
like packaged goods.
I forget who it is. Either Pepperidge Farm or
I don't know if they
Bluebell.
do ice cream.
No, you're right. Pepperidge Farm isn't an ice cream.
Yeah, they do like cookies.
There was this one commercial where they had like their super taster trying the vanilla, and like he just takes the spoon of vanilla, puts it in his mouth, and he's like. And he's making this noise the whole time. He's like, see, like you put it all around your taste buds, and you just it tastes vanilla, cream. He just goes crazy, and he's like, "That's a pass." And he tries every ice cream carton that goes through that store.
That's pretty effective marketing. it conveys that hey, we put our product through this guy. Like if he says it's good, trust it. Yeah, man, it's all related too. Like all these topics we're touching with all these industries, it's all related.
Yeah,
you know, that's kind of cool. But no, this IPA is awesome.
Thank you.
So what it makes? It's a West Coast style. What makes it? It's the hops. The origin of hops come from the West Coast.
Yeah. So
because hops in itself is an intriguing topic too. Like just that ingredient in beer where you have like I guess the bittering hops, the finishing hops.
Yeah. So hops initially, I guess, were used as a preservative. Because it was allowed the beer to make it through the travels, right? It wouldn't spoil as quickly, and then over time, just having that amount of hops just started creating a different character, and because it was a warmer temperature, you started getting this more aromatic kind of beer. But yeah, for West Coast are typically known for their high IBUs. IBUs means international bitterness units, which is how we measure bitterness. And having like this very pungent aroma of grapefruit, citrus, pine. Some people get a little crazy when it comes to the malt build. They'll have like they'll use like a base malt, which is a base malt is just a barley that's only used to extract sugar. So, for example, if I want to make a beer, I'll use like a Pilsner malt, which is my base malt. And that gives me the alcohol level. Yes, it gives me flavor, but I just need it for alcohol. And then I'll use a specialty malt, which goes through like a deeper kilning process, for example. So like if I want to do like a darker beer, like a stout, I'll use Pilsner malt or like a 6-row malt, a base malt, something that just gives me alcohol. And then I'll use like a deeply kilned malt, like a midnight wheat malt or a chocolate malt.
That's what gives it its color and
it gives it that flavor.
Oh.
So I'm not that malt. I'm not using it for alcohol. I'm just using it for flavor. So for us brewers, we'll manipulate our flavor profile for a beer based off of one, the different types of specialty malts, and two, what hops we put in.
Okay.
So, and then for this, we'll put in hops on the hot side, meaning when you're boiling your hops and your beer in the kettle, we call it wort because it's not fermented yet. We'll put hops in there. The longer you boil your hops, the more bitterness it becomes. The less you boil your hops, the more aromatics you get from it.
Okay.
And then we'll put that in a fermentation tank. It kicks off, meaning it starts to ferment, and then it starts to all those flavors from the yeast, the malt, the hops that you added in your kettle start to bind and like form this product. Once that fermentation has happened, we'll then dump more hops in the fermentation vessel, which is we call like cold side or dry hopping.
Okay. That's strictly for flavoring.
Strictly for our flavoring aromatics. Yes, you're going to get some bitterness from it, but the goal is more aromatics and flavor.
Okay.
And that's what we do for West Coast IPAs. That's what we do for East Coast IPAs. East Coast IPAs don't have as much hops in the kettle because people don't like their East Coast beers to be on the bitter side. They want it a little more sweeter, which is a whole other thing in fermentation where we jump into the realm of attenuation, which means how much of that sugar that yeast will eat. So you'll have a beer that attenuates 80%, which means it ate up 80% of that sugar. And then you have an East Coast IPA, which will attenuate 70%. So now you still have that 30% of sugar, and that gives it that other layer of complexity because of the sweetness. Yeah. So that's why it tastes like juice. Oh. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah, that's so interesting. And it just made me think, so you're a brewer at Second Line. What are some of like the other, like what are some of your responsibilities in the process? Are you touching every point of the process, or do they, and I don't know how breweries work, but like maybe are you just in charge of like one part of the process or steps?
I get you. So Second Line, we kind of run a 2-man team. Okay. And we have two other people that help us like part-time. Okay. So Gar Hatcher, he's kind of like the head brewer there. I'm the lead brewer, so I'm right underneath him. Okay. But we're part of like the leadership team. So we talk with the owners and the management team for the tasting room to figure out what beers to brew, what will benefit the market. So him and I, we kind of do a bit of everything together. We both brew the beers for production. We also have a 5-barrel brew house for experimentation, but that ultimately stays in-house. So, for example, we did a Louisiana-style Dortmunder, which is a Dortmunder is a German lager. And what makes it a Louisiana-style is we added Louisiana rice to it because we wanted to make something a little closer to home. But we love traditional beers. He loves pilsners and lagers. I love those as well. So we enjoyed that so much on the 5-barrel that we've done it on the production scale. So 5 barrels of beer for scale. A barrel of beer is 31 gallons. Okay. So just times 5 by 31. There you go. And then for production scale, which goes out to the market, that's 15 barrels for us. Okay. In this case, that beer and production scale, we're just going to keep it in-house, though.
And so when you keep it in-house, do you guys have a tap room?
We have a tap room, yeah. So we'll sell those cans in-house.
Just on premises?
On the premise, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So if people like are interested in Second Line, like to get some of that in-house stuff, you got to go to the
You have to go to the
brewery.
space.
Where's the brewery at?
So the brewery's in Mid-City, not too far from, what is it, City Park? Okay. 433 North Bernadotte. That's the thing about Louisiana. It's the pronunciation. You know where I'm going. Yep. I came here 3 years ago. This is going to be a quick segue. Sorry.
No,
but But anything I said, anything I mispronounced, I got attacked for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for me, I took it to the point where I purposely now mispronounce shit.
Yeah, just do it.
Yeah.
And even we, like New Orleanians, butcher their own street names. So you know where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
So if you spelled the street Milan, how would you pronounce that?
Milan.
Yeah.
Milan.
Yeah, Milan, right?
Yeah.
They pronounce it Milan.
Yeah. Yep.
Another one is what would read as like Burgundy.
Burgundy.
Yeah, we pronounce Oh yeah, New Orleans is like notorious for like what else do they do?
So there's a restaurant or a catering hall called Boudreaux's, or there's a bar.
Okay.
And I was like, Boudreaux, like the I guess the French. I was like, no, that's not how you say it. I'm like, you're really gonna tell me to mispronounce something on purpose. And it causes, it's a huge culture shock for me, first off, but it's like, no, like do as the Romans do, like do what like, you gotta follow the plan, and it's just so funny.
Oh yeah. Another street that we butcher. So you ever seen the movie 300?
Yeah.
Who's the main character?
Leonidas?
Yeah.
Leonidas?
So we've pronounced it Leonidas. Yeah. Yep. That's another one. Yeah.
There was,
and I always thought growing up, like hearing that, like, oh, I guess that's how you pronounce that word. And until when I saw 300, I'm like, wait, Leonidas? Wait, that's spelled like Leonidas.
Yeah.
We've been saying it wrong.
So there was one time where I had enough. I was at a restaurant. I'm not going to name it because I like the restaurant.
Yeah.
But I was reading the menu. I was like, hey, can I get the cochon sandwich? She's like, oh, you mean the kosher? I'm like, no, that's a Spanish word. It's cochon. Yeah. You're not going to tell me I'm saying it wrong. And she didn't deserve that. But it was just like, I at that point I had enough. And I was just like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to do that. It was just like, it was the last straw. But yeah, it's...
Oh, we have, and I'm sure there are other names like that people in the state butcher. What's the other one? Oh, the town of it's between Baton Rouge and New Orleans. When you're on the I-10, you see signs for
La Place.
Yeah,
La Place, La Plaque.
Yeah. Everyone like locals have pronounced it.
Instantly,
La Place. Yeah. But some people might say La Place.
Yeah.
Or I'm sure like French. I'm sure it's French.
Yeah.
It's probably La Place,
so. Mm-hmm.
La Place, or I don't know. But we've always said La Place. Yeah.
And then it's so funny that it gets contagious because now if I'm not paying attention, I'll start correcting people too, and it's just like, God, I hate that.
I know. Oh yeah, live long enough, you'll pronounce it as we do, which isn't always right, but we just do.
Yeah.
The other, I mean, I guess the classic is New Orleans, right? Some people pronounce it New Orleans.
Yeah.
Some people like the stereotypical is like Nolans. No, it's not that.
No, and I thought Nolans was the OG way, and like the locals like, no, you don't say it like that. Like, stop it.
So that started from that old Gentilly accent, which. You being in New York might appreciate this. So some people in New Orleans, like you could tell who like live there generationally, almost have this accent that's like almost sounds like Brooklyn.
New York. It sounds like a New York. Is it Gentilly?
So we call it the old Gentilly accent.
Yeah, I met someone like that.
Or what we call the Yat accent.
The what?
From the Yat.
The Yat.
From where you at?
Oh, okay.
Like where you at? Where are you at?
Okay.
So that Yat. So they would pronounce New Orleans as New Orleans, but it's not Nolans.
Yeah.
Like some people outside will say that.
They emphasize the O.
Yeah. So it's a funny, like one of our guests, a couple of our guests actually, when you listen to them, they have that like old school New Orleans accent. So that supposedly came from the turn of the century when the Sicilians started coming to America. Mm-hmm. When they would come to America, they either went through Ellis Island or New Orleans.
Yeah, I heard about that.
It's from the Sicilians when they assimilated in the U.S.
Yeah,
they kind of had that accent. So that's why like some people who hear New Orleans, like that old New Orleans accent for the first time, I think like, wait, you sound like you're from Brooklyn or parts of New York, but you're not. There's something like slower about it.
Yeah,
and so I just found that always intriguing.
So you guys had Italians move in. You also had an Irish move in here too.
Yeah, before that, yeah.
Okay, how was the Irish migration here? How did they How were they?
So when they first went to New Orleans, from what I remember some history, they were treated very, very poorly. A lot of them were tasked to like dig out the canals. So like Canal Street in New Orleans, that actually used to have a canal.
Yeah.
And the Irish were tasked with like digging that out, and a lot of them died from like, I think, yellow fever. And so they were really treated poorly. But then they kind of assimilated, and a lot of them, I guess, rose in class. Then the Italian wave came, and then they were kind of treated poorly. So yeah, but that's New Orleans in a nutshell, right? Right. Throughout time, there's always been a mixing of different groups.
Yeah.
And so that's what kind of gives it our unique flavor. I mean, someone best described the difference between New York and New Orleans by comparing us to foods. New York is like a salad. New Orleans is like a gumbo. So like both are a mix of different ingredients, but like a gumbo is liquid, so it like assimilates and becomes this new homogenous thing. Whereas the salad, you have little component, but it's solids, right? So you have a mix, but like you still have like the little unique but different spots.
Yeah. A good example is the Viet Cajun.
The Viet Cajun?
Yeah, the Viet Cajun cuisine. Like from what I remember, it was like Vietnamese came in and like
after the Vietnam War, a lot of them went to Louisiana and primarily New Orleans.
Yeah, and they started bringing in their cuisine into like Cajun style cooking, and that went off. And like Dong Phuong. You've heard of Dong Phuong Bakery? I love Dong Phuong. Yeah,
they're out in New Orleans East, and that's where like a huge Vietnamese community is out there.
That's a different world. That So I drove there once, obviously, to go to Dong Phuong. And then I started driving the neighborhood. It looks like you're
in like
you're
little
in another country.
Hanoi.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like you can even see the architecture in the houses on how they're built and stuff. They have like the really bright like metal fences. The houses are like a different color. It's insane.
Yeah, it's cool like what they've contributed to New Orleans since I guess the 70s. And I even heard like a lot of them kind of at first there was a lot of conflict. With that community in the fishing world, in the shrimping business.
Yeah.
Because before that, it was like a lot of these old Croatians that controlled like the shrimping business in Southeast Louisiana. But then when a lot of Vietnamese came over, a lot of them knew shrimping in their country. So they try to like enter into that. And so like there was a lot of conflict at first. But they've been able to survive and carve out like their own, I guess, business there too. But again, like New Orleans, what's cool about it is you're always having like a new mix of blood coming in.
Yeah.
And can change it over time too.
And
it's a port city, right? So it's always like that.
Yeah. And I learned this from a chef that I used to work with. He was like, for New Orleans, for someone to bring in like their culture of food, it's a rite of passage. Like either people accept it or they don't. And for Viet Cajun to come in like that and like just stay there solid was great. But if people don't fuck with your style of food for like a certain culture or whatever, then they just won't eat it. Which is also like a bit weird too, in my opinion, because like it does seem a little bit, and I could be wrong, that in Louisiana people are very like stuck to their foods.
Especially in certain regions, like even Lafayette.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever been out there. Or Acadiana. That's a different culture than the Creole New Orleans. And so there are even some spots in Acadiana that maybe are very resistant to like change in terms of the culinary scene.
Yeah.
From what I gather, I could be totally wrong, but New Orleans maybe is a little more
liberal.
Yeah, with like the food and maybe new cultures coming and experimenting, but I think at the end of the day, especially New Orleans, if you can cook well, it doesn't almost matter what style or cuisine you offer, as long as it tastes good, you know? But no, I mean, there are parts of Louisiana, and I'm sure as you realize by now, like and I think it's cool. Like New Orleans has its own kind of scene, Baton Rouge, Lafayette.
Yeah.
Shreveport even though sometimes I feel like they get the butt of the jokes from South Louisiana.
Yeah, Shreveport and Alexandria usually get the butt of the joke from what I hear.
But I like those people too.
I've never been there. the most I've traveled outside of Baton Rouge and Louisiana, Baton Rouge was just New Orleans and Lafayette.
Okay.
And I love Lafayette. It's, I don't think I really had like authentic like Cajun food from Lafayette.
Okay.
Which I'm pretty sure I'm doing myself a disservice, but
I gotta tell you, I gotta give a props to this one.
Can I borrow that?
Oh yeah.
Thank you.
So me and my friend David a few weeks ago went. I think it's pronounced Swears Grocer. Suire apostrophe S. I think they pronounce it Swears. It's in Kaplan, Louisiana, which is like southwest of Lafayette. So from here, from Baton Rouge to there, it's like an hour and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you go to this place and it looks like from the outside, the facade looks kind of run down. It's like this convenience store looking building, but you go inside and yeah, it is like part convenience store, but they built out a kitchen and the business has been there for 48 years. And so me and my friend go there one Saturday because we heard about it from someone else in Lafayette. We were asking like, where should we go to eat good food? And this couple mentioned this place. So we go there and it was like, I think an hour before close on a Saturday and we were the only ones there. And we see this little old lady in the back. She's just there like spreading this like dessert, this pastry that I guess she just made. And we go there and she's like this really demure but really sweet lady. And, you know, we introduce ourselves. Hey, like we heard about this place from a couple in Lafayette who recommended we try you out. So we're here. And man, like they do this food in-house and that's like really good. I guess you can call it Cajun food. I had I asked her, like, what should I try? She said, oh, we're known for the turtle sauce pecan.
Oh, that sounds
fire. And I'm sure people outside Louisiana, they'll hear this like turtle, like this real turtle meat, but it's not like, it's almost like a roast.
Yeah.
It was so good. Oh man. And then she served it with this like thin, like this one strip of fried catfish. Mm-hmm. But I'm telling you, this is probably the best Cajun food I ever had in my life. This catfish, like the batter of it, it had like this interesting texture I've never experienced. It almost had like a tempura like texture, but not really. Like it was something like I've never experienced in fried catfish.
So what's the typical batter for that? Is it cornmeal?
A lot of them do cornmeal, yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if this was corn. I mean, maybe it could have blended.
Beer batter, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Because like with the beer batter, the bubbles cause it to like aerate, and like that's why it's like puffy.
Maybe that's a key, yeah.
Yeah.
But you and Maria need to check this place out. So before you leave, I'll write it down for you. And awesome. And dude, they have these pastries that they make. I bought this pecan pie, like a slice of it. Man, it's like some of the best pecan pie I ever had.
So and
apparently I think Anthony Bourdain went there. Like in his last episodes, he went to Lafayette and he like went in there and I asked her like, oh yeah, I heard that Anthony Bourdain went here. And she was like, Miss Joan was her name. It's a pair of sisters who run it. They I guess inherit from their parents who started like 48 years ago. And I asked her about it and she said, oh yeah, Tony. Like, she had a good rapport. Oh yeah, Tony was so nice. Her producer, his assistant called me like that morning, like 11 in the morning, to say that he was coming. I didn't know who he was. I don't watch TV. And like he'd gone there like at 1 in the afternoon later that day, and he just loved it. He sat down and no one bothered him. He apparently loved it. So apparently he loved Lafayette, which it's like its own culture apart from New Orleans, apart from Baton Rouge, and that's what makes I think Louisiana great in terms of the diversity of cultures and foods. And
you live in Baton Rouge?
Now I live in Baton Rouge. Yeah. I moved here in 2012, but originally from Metairie, which is right a suburb of New Orleans.
Were your parents born in Louisiana?
They're from El Salvador.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So they migrated here.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys speak Spanish in the household?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you speak Spanish?
Sí, un poquito.
Un poquito.
Pero me cuesta para hablar.
Oh, yeah. So you speak Spanglish.
Yeah. I'm a no Sabo kid.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. You heard that term?
Yeah. I started like that too. Yeah.
So actually, Spanish was my first language growing up, but I lost a lot of it when I went to preschool.
Watching TV in English.
Yeah. And then my parents would speak Spanish to me in the household, but I always responded in English.
Yeah. And they let you get away with it.
Yep. I know. I wish like they would have been instilled to me like just don't forget Spanish. I mean, I can get around.
Yeah.
I've traveled Latin America. I can get around, but like I always feel like embarrassed knowing like, oh man, these guys know I'm not authentic and
have
the gringo accent.
They know you're gringo. Yeah. Same deal.
So where's your family from?
So my dad is from Colombia.
Okay.
He was born in Barranquilla, which is a coastal city. Mm-hmm. And my mom is Dominican. She was born in Dominican Republic. And she's from the countryside. So she's from a place called La Vega. So she's like country, like mountainside country. So they both moved here. She moved to New York when she was 18, and like she went straight into like the sweatshops, working out there, and like made a living. Before me was my sister, so she gave birth to my sister, and like 10 years later I was born. And then my dad, he was more educated than my mom because she was from the country, and so he got his own college degree in like business agriculture, and then made his way here, and then started driving taxis, and then just became an import clerk over time. So with them, it was like, one, I have this weird accent because it's a mix of like a Dominican accent, a Colombian accent, but with a little bit of gringo in it. Yeah. So I can go to either country and they're just looking at me like, where the fuck are you from? Yeah. Like why do you sound like us but not really? Like it's weird. Yeah. So it's hard to like, I guess for me pinpointing my identity when it comes to both those cultures. Yeah. But yeah, growing up with them, my dad could speak English, so he'll talk to me in English sometimes, but my mom, she would just only speak to me in Spanish, and I would speak back with her in Spanish. With my dad, I would get away with speaking in English, which kind of sucks now. Now I try to speak Spanish, and I can't do that here because no one speaks Spanish here. And like you'll go into certain places, like you ever been to La Morenita, the Mexican
I love that
market?
Yeah,
I'll go in there, or Ideal, and I'll try to speak Spanish with them, but then there's this look in their eyes.
They know, they can hear like, wait.
No, it's more so like they don't know I'm Hispanic, I'm Latino, so they're just like, what are you doing? So do
they think you're African American?
Yeah. Some people think I'm Samoan. Some people think I'm Egyptian. I guess I'm racially ambiguous, culturally ambiguous. Yeah. And so it for them it makes it hard to like really. They're trying to figure out what my deal is before they start talking to me. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So like it's hard to relate. Mm-hmm. So. I'll end up calling my mom just to talk, and just in Spanish, just something. But
how fluent are you? If you had like grade yourself on a 100-point scale, are you 100 being like the most fluent, 0 being nothing?
I would probably say 60, 70. Like I can read it, I can write it, I can understand it when I'm being spoken to. For me, I end up wasting time thinking about what I'm going to say. But luckily I ended up taking advanced native Spanish classes in high school, so I can like start understanding from Spanish from other cultures. Okay. Which is crazy because like you'll speak to someone from Nicaragua and they talk so fast. I remember during our test we ended up like listening to a news broadcast from them. And it was like a class of 30, and they just started like ripping Spanish, and it was super fast, and no one could understand the accent. Oh. So half that class just put their head down because they just gave up. So it's pretty amazing to seeing how like such a simple language just can change from like different regions, and then certain words are different, like
certain slang. Yeah, like I have a very good friend. He was on a podcast episode, David Lesh, and his dad's from I guess like the river parishes here, so Louisiana. His mother's from Mexico.
What's the river parish? Is that everything just by the Mississippi?
Yeah. So when we call the river parishes, they're like anywhere from like Baton Rouge going towards New Orleans, like west and east of the Mississippi River.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of like some people will call them Cajun, but they're different.
That's a whole.
It's not like
debate.
Acadian, and so even like in the Cajun world, they have like different kinds of Cajuns. Like they have the River Parish Cajuns, like the people you see in Swamp People.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with that reality show, and different from like Cajuns in Opelousas, and even different in Kaplan. Like it's pretty diverse too. So anyway, yeah, I have a friend who he's half Mexican and half, I guess, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. But he really, like, he's very fluent in Spanish, but you can tell, like, hearing him, he's definitely Mexican. Like, you know how Mexicans talk. Like, they have their own, you know, ora way. Yeah. And, like, they have this kind of unique cadence.
To the, yeah.
But he's, like, very fluent. But you could tell, like, if you have an ear for it, in terms of, like, the different kinds of Spanish spoken, like, he's Mexican. But it's kind of cool. I mean, and then if you've ever, I don't know if you've ever met someone from Spain, but then they have their own kind of.
They have a lisp to their Spanish.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yep. Yeah. So I think, I mean, just Spanish itself is very diverse.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Spanish, Hispanic, Latin. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So,
you ready for round 3?
Yeah. Cool. Well, this is the one I was waiting on, the Amaro. But look, both of these beers from Second Line were awesome.
Thank you.
If I had to choose one over the other, that's Saison.
The Saison?
Yeah, Saison. Yeah,
nice.
That was really good.
Yeah, I love that one too. I like the West Coast just because I love the bite to it. But the Saison is like just super crushable. You can drink it anywhere. And if you can't get to New Orleans, we're in Calandros. I think.
Okay.
I think we might be at Walmart. I could be wrong, but definitely in Calandros.
Okay.
The beer buyer there, he's really great, and he loves to get local shit.
Which Calandros? Both of them?
The one on Government. That's the only one I go to. Yeah.
Okay.
But they might have it at the other one.
Because we interviewed a few episodes ago Taylor Calandro.
Yeah.
He manages the alcohol department for the Perkins Road.
His name is
Taylor.
Is his last name Calandro by coincidence, or he owns
No.
it?
Yeah, it's part of the family.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's wild.
Yeah, that would be wild. Huh? Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, this is the Amaro that you and Maria did.
Awesome. Yeah. So like I said earlier, the Amaro we took some spirits from Oxbow. Cole was nice enough to give us a little bit of their rum distillate, and we let the botanical sit at about 80% alcohol. So we use spearmint, we use gentian root, licorice root, jasmine tea, black tea, currant, and cascara.
Oh yeah, that's
which was like the
coffee,
the dried fruit of the coffee bean, and we just let that sit. This was a happy accident because we were gonna let it sit for about a couple weeks, 3 months, and then that just sat there for like 8 months or something.
Whoa.
So then we ended up sweetening it back with some Acadian honey, and then just diluted it to like 30% alcohol.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, let's see what you got.
All right.
I'm assuming you tried some of this already, huh? Or no?
Yeah.
Okay.
So Maria and I started tasting it for proof.
Okay.
So we were tasting like, all right, does it need more water? Because we didn't have that much, so I couldn't really check the alcohol content. I just knew that we started off when we left it was at 50% alcohol, so I dropped it to like 30.
Okay.
So ballpark 30. Lowest it could be is probably 25% alcohol, but could always be wrong.
Yeah, that's quite the nose.
Yeah. Sorry, I have a cigar smell on my mustache.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, it's really like aromatic.
Yeah.
Very heavy. First, almost got like a pine.
Yeah.
In there. Oh, but there's a lot going on though. Then almost like a little chocolate cocoa nib.
Yeah.
Almost lavender.
Yeah. That's the jasmine tea comes out from the very beginning.
Oh, okay. That's the thing with Amaros I've found. And again, I'm no expert on Amaro, but every, I guess, distiller who does Amaro, it can be so complex and so different.
Yeah.
And it's that, I guess, those botanicals, the secret ingredients, and yeah, it can just be very complex and different.
Yeah. It was a pretty fun experiment.
That is cool. I like that. That's really good. And what proof is it again?
Ballpark 25-30% alcohol.
Okay.
Okay. Because this is if we left it at 100 proof in the jar before we started diluting with water.
Okay.
So we weren't sure, but it doesn't taste any higher than 40% alcohol.
Yeah. Have you had Lucano?
No. I don't think
trying to think
have.
who has it. Man, for a while, like at least in Baton Rouge, it was hard to get. I think Ben Q has it. That's where I got.
Ben Q has.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ever since they got new ownership, it's just the selection got more diverse. Yeah.
In
New Orleans, I know you can find Lucano in Keefe's. Are you familiar with Keefe's?
I heard of Keefe's. Yeah.
You need to check that spot out.
Yeah.
It is awesome.
They have a whole bunch of good selections.
Yeah, that's like a nerd, like culinary guru. They have like really small batch wines, like hard to get stuff. They also have I don't want to say a deli, but like they have foods. I think they have maybe cheeses and.
Speaking of deli,
pate, which I love pate.
I love pate. Speaking of deli, we were talking about like old restaurants in Louisiana, which was why I was asking about you living in Baton Rouge. What's a old school restaurant in Baton Rouge that you frequent or that you've been to that you enjoy?
That's kind of tough for me because, man, I sadly don't really go out to like the food scene in Baton Rouge as much. Like old school. I can tell you some like the newer restaurants, I guess, that I've been to that I really love. And then what kind of style, that's another style. Like people might talk about parans, but that to me is like kind of like seafood.
Is it parans or parans?
I don't even know. I've heard that pronounced so many different ways too. Yeah. Which that would be like almost like Cajun seafood-ish restaurant.
I only went there once when I was drunk. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. I gotta go there again.
Yeah. But like new school, I guess that's where I've kind of delved into. So one of my favorite restaurants, there's two of them. Eliza's.
I've heard.
They're on Jefferson.
Yeah.
That to me, the cuisine there, it's like almost modern Louisiana, contemporary Louisiana with some French flair, but like to me, it's like an awesome value. People talk about Jubin's.
Really?
As being like old school. If you talk about old school, like that's like the more upper end, very fine dining, and they were one of the oldest like establishments in town. I've never actually. No, I haven't. I've been there once. We actually did a cigar tasting there, like a cigar dinner.
Yeah.
But this was before COVID, so it was a while ago, and I forgot what we had, but I just remember having a good experience there. So definitely Jubin's would probably be like the one that I guess locals would say is like that epitome of like old school dining. You know what restaurant I need to go to is Louisiana Lagniappe.
Lagniappe,
on Perkins,
I heard about that.
Blue Bonnet.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Have you been to the Peruvian spot not too far?
I need to go there.
You got to.
It's good?
It's good.
What's it called? Like La Brasa?
La Brasa? Yeah, I think it's like brasas. It's brasas.
Okay, brasa.
If you get like the arroz chaufan, it's so.
I don't know Peruvian fare really, except what's the
Papa la huancaína?
No, the seafood that they put with lemon.
Shoot, why?
I know. I'm blanking out. That's how you know you're getting old. Is you can't.
Yeah. Oh man.
You know what I'm talking? Ceviche.
Yeah. They do ceviches, but arroz chaufan. So, quick little history on Peru. They had a migration of Japanese people moving there. One of their presidents was a Japanese man, President Fujimori, and from that they got this culture of like a fried rice, but then they kind of put their own like twist to it, and just that itself is just delicious. Another thing they end up doing is like they'll do like this They call it tallarines verdes, which is just a basil-based sauce pasta mix. But they only serve it with like a skirt steak. And that is like, that's awesome for me. Like I can eat that all day.
Yeah.
So they're really, really good. I didn't know about Juven's, to be honest, like forgive my ignorance. I always thought Juven's was like a franchise restaurant. I didn't from the outside looking at them. So now, when you tell me like there's history there, I have to go there now.
That's like old school Baton Rouge. Like I feel like old money.
Yeah.
Very fine dining.
Yeah.
And because they renovated it, I think a few years ago. I think during COVID. So that like for old school, that would be like what the general consensus. But I've heard Lagniappe is awesome. I haven't been there yet. Like I said, I still feel like even though I've been here, I guess now 12 years, I still feel like an outsider and I'm new because I just live in the shop.
Yeah. Also, it's not that much of a walkable town, so like you have to get used to like driving everywhere. I'm assuming like being from New Orleans, it was easier for you to walk or like take the streetcar.
Sometimes I didn't really do a streetcar, but like you could do like drive to one spot and then kind of walk that area. So you can. It's easy to bar hop and I guess restaurant hop if you want, but for like new food like. Eliza's really good. Cocha downtown is awesome.
Cocha? Yeah,
Cocha. That's like I would contemporary European, I guess.
I thought Cocha was like they had like a Latino vibe. I thought they were either their own.
There are a lot of like Spanish influence there, but it's like I guess in general European. Yeah. Contemporary, but like
Mediterranean, like a lot of shrimp and
the whole organic thing, but like they're really good quality too. That's a good date night kind of place downtown. One
place you should go
City
to.
Pork. I just went there for the first time.
Yeah. I've only had their catering and it's good.
Yeah. I went there for the first time in years last weekend. That was really good. Man, I love Barracuda tacos.
Yeah, we don't live that far from them.
Okay, so you frequent there a lot?
Yeah, Maria loves her fish taco.
The fish taco is awesome.
Fish taco's good.
So they have a location in New Orleans.
Do they?
I think they started in New Orleans.
Okay,
and it was always crowded from what I hear. I've never been to the New Orleans spot, so when they came here, it was just I guess easier to like get a table, but like the layout is awesome. I mean, outdoor seating.
They're right next to the flower shop, so you have like all that. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, so that's a good spot. Overpass Merchant.
Overpass Merchant's cool. Great. I love that spot.
Chow Yum. I just went for the first time a few weeks ago. And like,
did you really?
Yeah, because I just never. Again, like I didn't get out, but like that's awesome. Very good quality.
You're a meat eater, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, you have to go. It always sells out, but get the pig ears there and ask for them extra crispy.
Okay,
it's a side, but you can eat that like a meal. It is awesome. It's delicious. If you're okay with like it sticking to your ribs, you'll fuck with it. But definitely a spot that I frequent all the time. And it's I think they opened like in the 70s here. I could be wrong. I don't know the proper date. It was Anthony's Deli. It's on Government. It's an Italian deli, and like they make their own meats there. Their sandwiches are awesome. They make their own sausages there, and it's just awesome. You go in there, you see like an old lady in the back, and if you stare too long, like Cole, funny story on Cole. He had gone there one time, and like he was just looking at the menu, and like the old lady like thought he was staring at him, and she was like, "You want to take a picture?"
Oh no!
And like, but that's it's
like a Larry David Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, but that's real like. Italian deli shit like that for me.
Does that remind you of like New York?
Absolutely. Like it's there's
blunt, like just say they're just
blunt, straight to the point, but also it's that home vibe.
Yeah.
And like you don't get that in a lot of restaurants where like you go in there and it's like it looks like your grandma fucking set this whole place up and it's designed for you to just sit down and just chill.
Yeah.
And yeah, sorry. That
was cool.
Missing New York for me has been a really interesting experience for me. So like moving here was a culture shock. as you probably could understand, because one, it's the way people talk, the lifestyle. The lifestyle was crazy for me. Like at getting up for work and like at 6 a.m. I'm ready to go. Here, nothing's alive. Everyone's still like a zombie. Nothing turns on until like 9 a.m., 10 a.m. here.
That's very like Spanish. Like, and when I say Spanish, like European.
Yeah.
That's a very Mediterranean, like Latin. When I say Latin, that's like Spain, French, Italian. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like a very similar culture, especially Spain. Like, and I mean, given our history, right? New Orleans was inhabited by the French and the Spanish. Yeah. So they left their imprint and their culture. I mean, think about even from food, like jambalaya, that's basically a version of paella. That's like Louisiana's version of paella.
Interesting. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. But yeah, just even like the very laissez-faire, like, that's what they call the Big Easy. Like, we're just kind of like move slow. We just kind of go whenever, like, whatever.
It was.
Where in New York, it's like, yeah, you're ready to rip and roar. Like,
I remember I was when I was working with Oxbow earlier on. I had to go get some tools from Home Depot, and I got there like at 6 a.m. because like we needed to like start distilling, and so I go in there. I'm like, hey, I'm looking for like this tool. This like, can someone help me? And they're like, yeah, sure. Just give us a second. We're gonna get someone. And I waited there for like 45 minutes. Stupid me. I could have just like walked out or looked for it on my own, but it was just like, yo, what's up? Like, can someone help me? And they're just like, oh, no one came to help you? I'm like, no, I asked you. And it was at that moment, it was like, it's my fault for coming in this early. No one's insane like I am to try to come in here and start like running at 100.
Yeah.
So that was my point in life where it was like, I just gotta slow down.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that though. Like visiting back in New York and just seeing like how loud it is and how like people are fast.
And God forbid, like you try to like just talk to someone on the street, they'll like look at you. Like,
that, but also like if you're at like a bar or whatever, and like you try to like stop and like process what to order, you can see the impatience in their eyes, and it's just like, shit, no, I got to get my shit ready before I go up there because I'm gonna get torn up. Yeah. So yeah, it's having to switch back and forth is hard. Yeah. But yeah, it was. I think even now I still struggle with that, with the culture.
Either people either love it or they hate it.
Yeah.
Or some people just can't adapt, you know?
I mean, New Orleans is a little faster, I would say. Okay. New Orleans can be a little faster pace, especially in hospitality.
Yeah, that they thrive.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like that you can't be slow in hospitality. So big ups to bartenders.
Yeah, exactly. Well, look, I think it's a good time to wrap it up. Man, we could just keep talking. This is this is a longer episode. So I don't know who was longer. Because when I was finished with Maria's conversation, I'm like, man, this is like a lot longer than the average. But we just had good talk, and now same thing with you. So it was awesome having you by.
Thank you.
But before we sign off, can you do me the favor of doing our final puff segment?
Sure.
It's a rapid fire round of question and answers. So
sure.
I'll try to remember it since we've had a little bit to drink. Let's see. Number 1, Tabasco, Crystal, or other?
Crystal. That's acid based, right? No, it's a Crystal. Crystal's acidic because it's vinegar based, right? Yeah.
I mean, Tabasco is too, but I guess I don't know. I don't know what would be more acidic. So Crystal. Okay. Yeah. That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah, especially from I got it at Po' Boy Shop, Parkway Tavern, New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
Parkway Tavern. Yeah.
New Orleanians, I think, as a whole, tend to go Crystal.
Yeah.
Everywhere else, it's like more Tabasco.
I agree. I'd go for a Crystal any day of the week.
Mm-hmm. All right, number 2. I'm probably getting the orders wrong, but favorite vacation destination
that I visited or that I would like to visit.
That you visited.
Oh fuck! It has to be hands down Oaxaca.
Okay.
Yeah. If I could, I would live there.
Come on.
The countryside, just being surrounded by mountains all day. Yeah, that's my jam.
All right, number 3. I guess it's normally, what is your desert island cigar? So maybe we'll flip it for you. What would be your desert island beer? One from your own company that you work at, and then one for what's a desert island outside of Second Line?
If it was Second Line, I would say, dang, I would say the Saison, and if because like as a distro beer, Saison.
So that's Saison. That one that you're talking about?
Yes, Saison.
Is that always available? Or
It is always
seasonal?
available. We make it year round.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is good. That's very good.
It meets you right in the middle for like a fruity beer or just a beer.
Okay.
Like it's not crazy sweet.
I was very
like
impressed with that one.
Yeah.
That Second Line Saison is
Thank
awesome.
you.
Yeah. So Saison for Second Line. Then outside of Second Line, what would be your desert island beer?
That's hard for me because like I used to have a favorite, but I wouldn't drink that all like forever. I think a beer that I enjoyed was from Threes in Brooklyn. The name of that beer was Vliet.
Okay.
Bliet. I don't know how it tastes now, but that thing I would drink all day.
What kind of style was it?
It was I think
a lager or
I think it was
ale?
a German. It was a German lager.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I just can't remember right now.
Okay. Number 4. Usually I frame it in cigar terms, but we'll do beer.
We can do spirits too. I'm okay with that.
No, if you could drink with anyone, alive or dead, who would it be? Like have a session with.
If I could drink with someone alive or dead.
Yeah, someone from history or someone today that you'd want to have a beer with?
I would say David Zilber.
Oh, who's that?
David Zilber was the head of fermentation at Noma. Noma was a 3 Michelin star restaurant in Denmark, maybe?
Okay.
Yeah, I forget their name, but he was a person of color that wasn't really educated like through school. He was self-educated and he jumped into culinary arts and was able to create like all these magnificent dishes out of fermentation.
Wow.
And if anyone ever desires to make like a garum, like fish sauce for like Thai cuisine, that's a garum. That's basically just a fish in salt and water. The enzymes in the fish ferment the proteins in the fish, and that creates this like sauce. And then they use that sauce to season their food. You can do that with beef too. Turns out, all you need is koji, water, salt, and like a lean beef if you really want to.
Have you ever done that?
I did.
It
was delicious. The only takeaway is you can either do it the long way, which takes about a year, or you can do it the fast way where you take a rice cooker, put it on warm, and just let it sit there for 6 months. The thing is, it will smell your house up. It smells like just roast meat all the time, like funky roast meat. And then you just take that, you can put it on eggs, you can put it on rice, whatever. And it's just delicious. You just take, I think it's 10% salt by weight, which is so let's say you do 100 ounces of this concoction. So you do 10 ounces of that is your koji, which is a bacteria that they use for making sake. Then 10 ounces of salt, which is another 10%, 30% water, and then the rest is beef.
Okay.
Right? I think I got that math right. Yeah. 10, 30, and then the rest.
Yeah, I've never heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's really dope. I got to make it again.
That's a time commitment.
Yeah. You have to be patient.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I could sit down with him and just talk about fermentation and like just creating your own like subculture of like bringing people together and just sharing a moment, right?
Yeah.
Through food, through beer, through anything that one can consume. That would be my dream meeting.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
And final question, who would you want to hear on a future podcast here?
Oh man, that's hard. Let's see. I don't know off the top of my head. Dang. I guess I have to get back to you. That's okay. I've met so many people here.
Maybe the previous person you were talking about.
David Zilber, imagine. Yeah. I mean, he's everywhere. Hopefully. Yeah, David Zilber.
All right, there you go.
Come to Baton Rouge, boy.
Yeah.
Got you.
Nice. Well, Hector, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, man.
It was awesome.
Thank you for inviting me. Appreciate that.
All right. Everyone, take care.
Cheers.
Bye.